Imagine, if you will, the gentle sway of the sea beneath your body as you lie in a hammock made of coarse canvas. The scent of salt hangs thick in the air, mixed with tar, rotting wood, the faintest trace of fish left over from the day's catch. The creaking of wooden beams above your head offers a rhythmic lullaby, interrupted only by the quiet shuffle of bare feet against the damp deck and the occasional squeak of a rat scurrying nearby. It is the year 1703. You are aboard a merchant vessel making its way slowly across the Atlantic Ocean. There is no rush, no urgency, only the persistent forward push of the wind in the sails and the eternal patience of time. This world is far removed from the noise of cities, the hum of engines, or the brightness of screens. Here, life is elemental wind, wood, water, and will. The ship is home to over 100 men, cramped together in a wooden womb that groans and breathes with every wave. They eat, sleep, work, and suffer together. Days bleed into nights, and nights into foggy dawns. Time is measured not by clocks, but by bells and meals and watches. There is a kind of strange peace in the monotony below deck, where the lantern light casts long shadows, and the smell of bilge water is ever present. Sailors curl up in hammocks that sway gently with the motion of the ship. The ceiling is low, the air is heavy, and privacy is a forgotten concept. The bodies are packed tightly, and sleep comes as much from exhaustion as from comfort. Rats are constant companions. They scamper along the beams, nibble on forgotten crumbs, and sometimes curl up in forgotten boots. But the men don't mind. Rats are part of the ship, like the sails or the rigging. Their presence is oddly reassuring. If the rats are still aboard, then the ship is still afloat. Above deck, the world opens to an endless sky and an endless sea. The horizon blurs into a watercolor of grays and blues, and the wind sings its own sea shanty through the ropes. The men stand watch in silence, their eyes scanning for sails or storms. There is nothing to see, and yet everything. You do not speak much on a ship like this. Words are save for commands, laughter, or curses. Most communication is done through glances, gestures, and shared labor. A nod replaces a conversation. A grunt can mean a dozen things. Silence is not lonely here. It is part of the language of the sea. So, as we begin this slow, drifting journey through the life of a sailor in the 1700s, let your mind untangle itself from modern worries. Let it rock gently with the rhythm of the waves. Let the sails of your imagination catch the wind, and allow yourself to float back in time to an age of salt air, rough rope, and simple, enduring survival. Asterisk, the first sensation is not the light, but the motion. A slow, rolling sway beneath your hammock, as if the world itself breathes in long, heavy sighs. The wooden beams above your head creak softly in protest, joints swollen from years of salt and damp. Shadows dance across the ceiling from a nearby lantern, casting flickering shapes that stretch and fold with the sway. Round you, the rustle of canvas and the groans of sleeping bodies announce the slow waking of the crew. It is not yet dawn, but time means little down here. The air is thick, humid, and laced with the musk of unwashed bodies, brine, and old rope. You take a slow breath, your lungs expanding with the weight of it as your fingers find the edge of the hammock. Of course, fabric presses into your skin, leaving imprints like a sailor's tattoo. Somewhere nearby, someone coughs, a wet, deep sound that echoes off the beams like a muted cannon. You recognize it without looking. It is Thomas, a barrel-chested man who hasn't stopped coughing since the storm 3 weeks ago. You swing, your legs over the side, feeling for the wooden deck with calloused toes. The planks are slick, worn smooth by 1,000 feet and soaked in seawater. A rat darts across the floor between your foot and a barrel of pickled fish, its tail leaving a lazy trail in the dust. No one reacts. Rats are as much a part of the ship as the sails or the compass. You watch it disappear beneath the crate and wonder how it survives the voyages. Okay, some men say they navigate by instinct. Others say they follow the stars. There is a rhythm to mornings on a ship, not one dictated by alarm bells or schedules, but by habits carved through repetition. You find your boots stiff with dried salt and wear, and pull them on over your wool socks. One has a hole in the toe. You don't remember when it appeared. You make a mental note to mend it, knowing full well you won't. You stand slowly, your spine cracking from the night curled in canvas, and stretch into the tight space. A lantern flickers above, throwing amber light onto your face. You make your way toward the ladder that leads to the main deck. Moving through the maze of hammocks and crates, men mumble, shift, or snore. Someone swats at a fly that isn't there. You hear the slow drip of condensation from the beams overhead. Water, ever present, makes its way through every inch of the ship. It seeps into wood, fabric, skin, and thought. You climb the ladder one hand at a time, your fingers wrapping around the smooth, salty rungs. The sound changes as you ascend. The low murmurs of the lower deck give way to the creak of rigging and the hush of wind. You emerge onto the deck as the horizon begins to lighten, the first whispers of dawn painting the clouds in lavender and gold. The sea stretches in all directions, infinite and unknowable. The ship is a tiny speck in a blue-gray wilderness. You breathe in deeply. The air is cold, sharp with salt, and alive. Above you, sails snap softly in the breeze, tugging at their ropes like restless children. The masts reach into the sky like the fingers of a drowned god. You pause, watching them sway against the heavens, each movement smooth and slow. A gull cries in the distance, unseen. The waves roll gently against the hull, a steady percussion beneath your feet. You let yourself feel the shit, not just stand on it, but become part of it. This wooden vessel, old and scarred, is your home. Another day begins, not with ceremony or purpose, but with presence. The ship moves forward, whether you wake or not. The sea does not wait, nor does it remember. But you are here, now, aboard this floating world. The deck under your boots, the sky above your head, the wind on your face, the smell of salt in your hair. And for a moment, there is nothing more. Asterisk. Before the sun has fully risen, the crew stirs like a waking beast. Key, the ship, groaning and creaking under the strain of its own ancient body, becomes a place of quiet movement. Boots scrape the deck, water sloshes in buckets, and ropes thud softly against wooden rails. Morning duties do not wait for light. They arrive with the first bell, demanding attention with the same certainty as the tide. Each man has his task, and those tasks rarely change. The deck is still damp from the night air, glistening with a fine sheen of salt and dew. Men begin to scrub with brushes made from bundled reeds, their hands red and raw from the cold water. Soap is scarce, and its absence is replaced with sand and salt, nature's abrasives. The scent of brine grows stronger as the buckets are poured again and again, washing away yesterday's grime. The act is not about cleanliness, it is about routine, order in a world governed by chaos. Sails must be checked and trimmed. Ropes must be coiled neatly, barrels shifted, tools examined. Even the mundane becomes sacred when repeated enough times. These acts of maintenance are not glamorous, but they are vital. A torn sail or a rotten rope could mean disaster. Men work mostly in silence, their breath misting in the cool morning air. A shouted instruction now and then, grunt of exertion. The ship does not need noise, it needs discipline. Farther aft, a small fire is lit in a box of bricks. The galley, stove, the cook, a round man with one good eye, begins preparing the morning meal. It is not a feast. Hardtack, a few slices of salted pork, maybe a spoonful of dried peas soaked overnight. The smell is not appealing, but it is warm, and warmth is worth more than flavor out at sea. One by one, men approach the galley and receive their portion, cradling it like treasure. They sit where they can on crates, coils of rope, or even on the deck itself. Elbows resting on knees, they eat in silence or speak in low voices. The food is chewed slowly, not for savoring, but because there's no point in rushing. Everything out here moves slowly. The ship, the meals, the sun. One man taps a rhythm on the side of his bowl with a spoon. Another whistles a tune so quietly it almost disappears in the wind. It is enough. Once the meal is done, the bowls are wiped with cloths and stacked. Water is too precious for washing dishes. Oil-stained fingers are rubbed clean on trousers. The men rise, stretch, and return to their duties. The routine continues. Ropes are pulled, knots retied, sails hoisted. The ship begins its daily rhythm, each creak and clank part of a symphony older than memory. You move with it, not against. It lets you find yourself out of step with the sea dot above. Gulls wheel in the sky, shrieking their discontent. Blow, waves slap against the hull with the patience of centuries. The wind picks up, filling the sails with a quiet thunder. The ship responds, groaning and leaning forward slightly, as though remembering its purpose. The horizon remains empty, but no one minds. There is peace in routine. There is purpose in repetition. Even if today looks like yesterday, it does not feel the same, and so another morning drifts by aboard the ship. No grand announcements, no sudden changes, just the gentle ticking of duties being done. In this slow, worn world of wood and salt, every moment has its place. And as you tie off the last rope of your watch, the warmth of exertion spreads through your chest. Okay? And you know, at least for now, all is well. Asterisk. You begin to notice it more after a few days. The scent that clings to everything. It seeps into your clothes, your skin, your breath. A mix of salt, tar, old rope, damp wood, and something else. Sweat, perhaps, or time itself. The ship wears its scent like a shroud, and once you're aboard, you wear it too, right? It is not unpleasant, just ever present. You no longer think of it as odd. You miss it when it's gone. Tar is one of the great preservatives of seafaring life. It is brushed onto ropes to protect them, slathered along seams in the deck to keep out water, even rubbed into wounds to keep infection at bay. It has a sharp, almost sweet smell, sticky and black as night. It stains fingers, clings to boots, and marks your shirt without apology. But it is life. A ship without tar would rot and die. So you endure the scent gladly. Salt, on the other hand, is less forgiving, stiffens fabric, stings your eyes, and draws every drop of moisture from your skin. You taste it on your lips, even when you haven't been near the rails. It coats every surface, sometimes in crystals, so fine they shimmer like frost. Ropes become crusty. Hats crackle when bent. Your hair grows coarse, and your beard itches. Yet, without salt, there would be no sea. You learn to live with it, to love it, in a way. The wind carries this cocktail of aromas up from the decks, across the sails, and into every crevice of the ship. Even sleep cannot escape it. You lie in your hammock and inhale the same air you breathed on the deck, only heavier. It wraps around you like a wool blanket soaked in brine. Sometimes, if the wind shifts, you catch the scent of the galley or the faint perfume of rotting vegetables stored too long. But mostly, it is salt and tar. Your clothes never fully dry. Even when the sun is out and the wind is strong, the dampness lingers. It seeps into seams and hems, softening some fabrics and hardening others. Boots are particularly vulnerable. You learn to oil them, to patch them with scraps of sailcloth, to tie the laces in ways that won't come undone when wet. There is a kind of pride in a well-worn uniform, patched, faded, caned, and strong. The scent of the ship becomes a kind of identity. When you return to shore, people wrinkle their noses as you pass. You smell like the sea, they say, like fish and wood smoke, but you do not mind. You're proud of the scent. It tells a story of hard days, rough hands, and endless water. It marks you as one who belongs to something greater than land. It is a badge you wear silently with every breath. You stop noticing it after a while. It fades into the background, like the creak of wood or the sound of your own heartbeat. But if you leave the ship, even for a few hours, the absence is loud. Clean air smells empty. It lacks the weight of the ocean, the grit of the wind. You crave it, that strange, briny perfume of life at sea. It is not just a smell. It is a memory, a belonging dot. And so the ship becomes not just your home, but your skin. You carry it with you in scent, in salt, in tar, and as you walk the deck, your boots thudding against the boards, you breathe in deeply, and for a moment, the world feels still. The scent of the sea wraps around you once more, and you are undeniably home. Asterisk. Life aboard a ship is governed by a language of its own. It's not just the shouted commands or nautical terms, but the quiet signals, gestures, and rhythms understood by all. A nod from a boatswain can mean more than a sentence. A glance at the sky is a warning of weather. A raised eyebrow may signal caution, while a slow blink means trust. Words are not wasted. They are stored like fresh water, used only when needed, always with purpose. Ropes have names. Every line, every knot, every block and tackle has its own designation. The jargon is dense, but necessary. Confusion at sea can be fatal. Saying, pull that rope is not enough. You must say, brace the fore topsail yard or belay the main sheet. Each word carves clarity out of chaos. Sailors learn the language not by study, but by doing. Their bodies remember what their tongues forget. Muscle memory becomes survival. Orders are barked during storms, whispered during stealth, and sung during routine. Chants and songs are tools, a way to synchronize movements, to lighten burdens, to remember steps. A halyard shanty might keep rhythm while hoisting a sail. A capstan song helps time the winding of an anchor chain. The tunes vary from ship to ship, but the effect is the same. Music becomes labor. Rhythm becomes power. Even silence speaks. The creaking of the timbers, the slosh of the bilge, the whistle of the wind in the rigging, all convey meaning. Sudden quiet can mean danger. A new sound might mean damage. Sailors develop an ear for their ship. God, the way a mother hears the difference between a child's cry of hunger and one of pain. God, the ship is alive in its way, and those who sail her must learn to listen. Conversations, when they happen, are often brief. A few words exchanged during a watch. A quiet joke passed during a meal. Stories are told at night, when lanterns flicker and the sea is calm. Tales of storms survived, ports visited, loves lost. Some of them true, most of them not. Okay, but truth is not always the goal. Connection is. And in the telling, the silence of the sea is broken, if only for a while. Letters are rare, but treasured. When the ship docks, messages are sent and received, often months delayed. A letter from home is read and reread until the ink fades. Words from land carry weight no sailor can deny. They bring joy, sorrow, sometimes both. But out here on the ocean, the voice you hear most often is your own, in your head, in your breath, in your dreams. The sea teaches you to listen inward. There is a calmness in this world of limited speech. You are not required to fill every moment with sound. The ocean doesn't care if you speak or remain silent. It simply moves. And so do you. You learn to be at ease with your thoughts, your tasks, and your silence. There is no need to perform. You are one voice among many. The wind, the wood, the waves, all speaking in harmony. And when the sun dips low and the ship glows in, the soft light of evening, you hear the most beautiful sounds of all. The gentle flapping of sails, the sigh of the sea, the murmur of tired men settling in. A final whispered command, a low laugh, the scrape of a spoon on a tin bowl. This is the language of the ship. It needs no translation. It is felt, not heard, and it stays with you long after the voyage ends. Asterisk, they are everywhere, and yet seldom seen in daylight. The rats, small, nimble, unbothered by the comings and goings of men, caves, between crates, beneath floorboards, inside barrels. They chew through rope, steal crumbs, and nest in forgotten corners. Some men curse them, others talk to them as companions. On a ship, you'll learn not to be picky about your company. They are survivors, much like the crew. They endure storms, cold, hunger, and thirst. They are always just out of reach, their sharp eyes watching from the darkness. At night, you hear them, the scurrying of feet across beams, the squeal of a squabble, the scratch of tiny claws on wood. Key becomes background noise, like the wind or the waves. You learn to sleep through it, to let the sound rock you to rest. Occasionally, one will become bold. You'll dart across the deck during breakfast or sneak into a coat pocket looking for crumbs. Reactions vary. Some men will chase them with boots or sticks. Others will toss them scraps. Superstition is strong at sea, and for many, the rats are omens. To see many rats is a sign of safety. They sense no danger. To see them fleeing the ship, however, is another matter entirely. Cats were once brought aboard to control them, but the cats rarely survive long. The sea does not take kindly to animals that do not adapt. The rats, on the other hand, thrive. Some say they came from the old world. Others believe they were born of the ship itself. Regardless, they are part of the crew now. Unpaid, unwashed, unbothered. They go where they please, do as they wish, and answer to no one. At times, you wake to find one perched near your hammock, eyes shining in the lantern light. It watches you, still and silent, as if weighing your soul. You do not move. You stare back. A quiet understanding passes between you. You are both trapped on this floating island. You both survive, however you can. After a moment, it vanishes, slipping into a crack in the wall like smoke. The encounter is forgotten by morning. The men give them names: Longtail, Grubber, Tooth. They become legends in their own right, the same way sailors become stories when they die. A rat that escaped the trap 5 times. One that stole tobacco. Another that nested inside a boot and defended it fiercely. These tales are told in hushed tones, often with laughter. The rats become symbols of cunning, of luck, of resilience, small mirrors of the men themselves. Food must be guarded carefully. Barrels are sealed with pitch, sacks hung from beams, crates double-locked. Even then, the rats find a way. They chew through anything. It is a game, in a way, a contest of wheels. The crew sets traps, for the rats are clever. They learn, they adapt, and still they thrive. One can almost admire them for it, grudgingly. They are tenacious, resourceful, and unafraid of the dark. And so, you lie in your hammock, the wood creaking above and the sea whispering beyond the hall. Somewhere nearby, a rat moves. You hear it, but do not open your eyes. You no longer flinch, no longer fear. You have learned to live with them as they have with you. 2 creatures of the sea, riding the same tide, dreaming different dreams, under the same stars. Asterisk, it begins with a sound. A dull, resonant clang that echoes across the deck and down through the wooden skeleton of the ship. The bell, it rings too. Mark time, though time here does not follow clocks. Instead, it follows the bell every half hour, every watch, every change in duty. 8 bells for the end of a 4-hour watch. The crew listens without needing to look. They know where they are in the rhythm of the day simply by how many times the bell sings. The bell is mounted on the forecastle, a bronze dome dulled by decades of salt and wind. Its surface is pitted and greened with corrosion, but it sings. True, a boy strikes it with a small hammer, his movements steady, ritualistic. He doesn't look up as he does it, okay? Knows the rhythm by heart. 1 clang for the first half hour, 2 for the first hour, 4 for mid-watch, 8 for a new shift. The cycle repeats endlessly as the sea does. The sound travels, it pierces. The wind, the waves, the weary bones of those below deck. It is a reminder of duty, of structure, of the unyielding passage of time. Men stir when they hear it, sometimes reluctantly, sometimes gratefully. They count the bells in their heads and know what comes next. Morning meal, rope work, anchor duty, star watch. The bell is not loud, but it is long. Its tone cannot be ignored. Even in sleep, you hear it. Your dreams fold around it. Clang becomes part of your inner rhythm, a pulse that guides your breath and thoughts. Sometimes you wake before it sounds, your body anticipating its command. Other times, it drags you from slumber, like a hand on your shoulder. There is no escape from the bell, but you do not seek escape. The bell means order, and at sea, order is comfort. The metal of the bell grows warm in the sun, cold in the rain. Sailors polish it with rags when the seas are calm. It is one of the few things allowed to shine on a ship built for work, not beauty. Some touch it for luck. Others tap it with their fingers when passing. It is a kind of shrine, simple, unspoken, revered. It does not judge. It simply speaks every half hour without fail. In stormy weather, the bell still rings. Its sound is swallowed by thunder, lost in the shriek of the wind, but it rings. The boy strikes it, soaked and clinging to the rail, water pouring from his sleeves. He does not hesitate. Even when lightning cracks across the sky, the bell sounds. It reminds the crew that they are still on course, that the world still turns. That time still matters, even when the sky seems to fall. When anchored in calm waters, the bell rings more gently. Its tone is softer, more melodic, carrying over glassy waves. Birds respond to it, calling from nearby rocks. Fishermen in small boats glance toward the ship, recognizing the pattern. To outsiders, it may be quaint. To those aboard, it is everything. It is the spine of the day, the song of survival, the metronome of life at sea. And when you finally leave the ship, walking on land that no longer sways, you find yourself listening for the echo of that bell. In dreams, it returns, distant, steady, warm, a piece of the sea calling you back, a part of the ship that stays inside you long after the voyage ends. The watch is a sacred duty. Every man aboard must take his turn, standing guard against the unknown. Whether it's sunlit noon or moonless midnight, someone must always be watching. The ocean, vast and indifferent, hides many things: rocks, ships, storms. It is during the watch that these threats are spotted and lives are saved. But more often, the watch is uneventful. Still, it is never idle. You are assigned the middle watch tonight, midnight to 4, the hardest hours. Your body craves sleep, your eyes blur, and the cold bites deepest. But you dress in silence, climb the ladder with quiet steps, and step out onto the deck. The stars greet you, scattered like spilled salt, across black velvet. The sails above you snap lazily in the night breeze. The ship creaks but does not protest. There is a peace in this time. The world is asleep, and you are awake. The sea whispers, not roars, walk slowly along the deck, lantern in hand, checking the ropes, the sails, the horizon. There is nothing there, and that is good. You note the direction of the wind, glanced at the compass, listen for changes in the ship's rhythm. All is well. Queso. You walk and listen and think. Sometimes you speak to the others on watch. A few words passed in the dark. Not much more is needed. Each man in his own thoughts, bound together by duty. You might share a joke, a memory, or a fragment of song. Other times, you remain silent for hours, letting the quiet hold you. There is no need to fill the night with noise. The sea provides enough. Your mind wanders during the watch. To home, to past voyages. Okay. 2 stories heard in ports long since left behind. You remember the face of someone you once knew, blurred now by time and distance. You wonder if they think of you. Probably not. The sea has a way of removing you from the world. You become a ghost to the people you left behind. Only the ship sees you now. The cold deepens as the hours pass. You draw your coat tighter, tuck your hands beneath your arms. The wind cuts sharper near dawn, but your body adapts. You stamp your feet softly, breathe through your nose, and keep moving. The lantern glows beside you. Its light, small but constant. Like the bell, it offers comfort in repetition, 1 foot in front of the other, again and again. Finally, you hear it. The bell. 8 rings. The end of your watch. Relief floods your limbs, even as they ache. You pass the lantern to the next man, exchange a nod, and descend back into the warmth below. Your hammock waits, swaying gently in the dark. You crawl in without ceremony, eyes already closing. The watch is over. The sea, once again, watched, and as you drift into sleep, the memory of the stars lingers, cold light on dark water, silence broken only by breath and waves. You have seen the world in its quietest form, and it has seen you standing guard. A speck of light in an endless night. Asterisk, the hammock is not comfortable by land standards. But at sea, it becomes your bed, your refuge, your cocoon. Made from thick canvas or woven rope, it is strung between 2 beams, just wide enough for a single body. It sways with the ship, matching the rhythm of the waves. At first, you struggle to balance, to climb in without tipping, but soon it becomes second nature. The hammock holds you like a cradle. You learn to sleep, curled slightly, knees bent, arms crossed. There is no room to stretch. You do not need to. The motion of the ship rocks you gently. It feels like floating in a dark, warm sea. Around you, others sleep. A chorus of breaths, snores, coughs. The air is close, the ceiling low, the space shared. Yet, in your hammock, you are alone. A small island in a sea of men. Dreams aboard the ship are strange. They come quickly, deeply, vividly. Belief. Perhaps it is the rhythm, or the sound, or the closeness of death. You dream of home, of storms, of falling into the sea. You dream of silence, of music, of a voice calling your name from somewhere you cannot reach. Sometimes you wake and cannot tell where you are. The hammock becomes a cloud, the ship a memory, the sea a whisper. There are nights when sleep is stolen by the cold, when the canvas is damp and your breath fogs in the dark. You wrap yourself tighter, pull your coat over your chest, and wait. The cold does not last forever. Eventually, the body warms itself, or the bell rings, or the morning light finds its way through the cracks. You learn patience. You learn endurance. The hammock teaches both. Hammocks are slung close together, so close you can hear another man's heart beating if you listen. Privacy is not a concept aboard this ship. You see others dressing, sleeping, praying. Their lives unfold beside yours, woven together like the ropes above your head. At first, it feels intrusive. Later, it feels like family. Imperfect, noisy, smelly, but family. When the seas are rough, the hammocks sway violently. You wake with a jolt, heart pounding, unsure if you're falling or flying. The beams groan, the ship lurches, and your hammock swings like a pendulum. You hold on, ride the motion, breathe through the nausea, and eventually the sea calms, and so do you. Hammock never lets you fall. It's not completely. Some sailors personalize their hammocks, a stitched name, a charm tied to the rope, a piece of cloth from home. These small touches matter. They mark your space, your story, your presence in the floating city. When a sailor dies, his hammock becomes his shroud. Wrapped tight, weighted with cannonballs, lowered into the sea. It is a farewell the ship understands, and so, each night, you climb into your hammock, knowing its history, its silence, its strength. You feel the ship sway beneath you, the wind hum above you, the sea breathe around you, and slowly, gently, your eyes close, you drift, you dream, you belong. Asterisk food aboard a 1700 ship is not about taste. It is about survival. Its meals are predictable, repetitive, and often difficult to chew. Its most common fare is hardtack, a biscuit so dense and dry it must be soaked in water to soften. Sometimes it harbors weevils. The men joke that it's the only meat they're guaranteed. The joke is not funny the third time, but is told anyway. Humor, like salt, preserves morale. Salted meat is the main course. Pork or beef, preserved, in brine and stored in barrels. It is tough, stringy, and deeply salty. Boiled with dried peas or served cold with bread, it provides strength, not satisfaction. Still, after a long watch, it smells like comfort. The galley crew, despite limited ingredients, do their best. A stew made from onions, peas, biscuit crumbs, and fat becomes a feast in the right light. Meals are served in shifts, men queuing patiently, or not so patiently, for their share. Each man brings his own tin bowl, his own wooden spoon. There are no seconds. There is no waste. Every crumb is claimed. When the ship nears port, fresh food is a luxury. Oranges, bread, cheese. But at sea, every bite tastes of preservation, of salt, of repetition. The body learns not to complain. Water is precious, stored in wooden casks. It spoils quickly. After weeks at sea, it grows murky, tinged with algae, sour on the tongue. But you drink it anyway. There is no choice. Sometimes, beer or rum is served, diluted, but welcomed. It cuts the taste, lifts the mood. You savor those rare moments. A sip of something more than survival. A taste of ease, of land, of memory. The act of eating becomes a ritual, a quiet gathering. Men seated on barrels, on crates, on the deck. Okay? Talk or don't. They eat, slowly or quickly. Some save a bit for later. Others scrape the bowl clean. The clink of spoons, the rustle of biscuit, the slurp of stew. This is the sound of sustenance. No fanfare, no celebration. Just fuel for the next task, the next hour, the next bell. Sometimes a cook surprises the crew with a sweet, a pudding, made from flour, suet, and molasses, boiled in cloth. It is dense, sticky, and beloved. Men smile as they eat, the rare treat pulling them back to childhood, to home, to somewhere else. For a moment, the ship disappears. Only the taste remains. Thick, hot, and sweet, a memory in every bite. There are days when food is scarce, when storms ruin the stores, when the rats win, rations are cut, meals shrink, hunger grows, tempers flare, and yet the crew endures. Hunger is familiar. Hunger does not surprise. The men mutter, curse, endure. They chew slower, they sleep more, they survive, always. And so, you eat what you are given, with thanks or with silence. You clean your bowl, tuck it away, and rise. The meal is over. The duty continues. The sea does not care if you are full, only that you are ready. You do not often see the captain, but you feel his presence. He moves through the ship like a current, unseen but powerful. His quarters are aft, high and enclosed, with windows that gaze across the wake. He dines alone, sleeps alone, commands alone. The ship may belong to all, but it answers to one. His word is wind, its mood is tide. The crew watches him more than they admit. He dresses well, though salt has faded his coats. Kellets hang heavy on his shoulders, and his boots gleamed despite the dust. His face is lined, eyes sharp, mouth tight. He speaks little when he does. Men listen. Even the wind seems to still. His voice cuts through chatter like a knife through canvas. Calm, deliberate, final. You do not argue with the sea. You do not argue with the captain. He keeps charts in his cabin, spread across the table like treasure maps. He studies them in candlelight, pencil in hand, plotting routes, watching currents, measuring time. A compass sits beside him, always, pointing north, though he often gazes south. He writes in a ledger, pages filled with tiny script. It's the ship's soul, recorded line by line. He knows its weight, its crew, its flaws, better than anyone. Some say he once served in the Navy. Others claim he was a pirate. No one knows for sure. He does not tell stories. His past is sea foam, glimpsed and gone. But he knows storms. He smells danger. He can read the sky like a priest, reads scripture. The men trust him because he brings them home, or tries to. And at sea, that is the only thing that matters. He rarely smiles, but when he does, it is like sunlight breaking through fog. Quick, bright, gone. You remember it longer than seems reasonable. A nod from him feels like a medal, a frown like a wound. You do not seek his approval, but you feel its absence. He does not play favorites, but he knows every name. He forgets nothing, and he forgives slowly. When trouble comes, a fight, a broken rule, the captain does not shout. He listens. He decides. His punishments are fair but firm. A reduced ration, a flogging, a demotion, justice, served cold as sea spray. Some fear him, others admire him, most do both. He is not a friend, he is the captain. That is enough. At night, his lantern glows in the stern window, a soft light above the Black Sea. It flickers, steadies, flickers again. You see it from the deck and feel comforted. He is awake. He is watching. He is thinking, planning, praying, for wind, for calm, for safe passage. His prayers are silent, his duty loud, and so the ship moves forward. Under stars, through fog, against tide, and behind it all, the captain's shadow, guiding, guarding, bearing the weight of every soul aboard. Asterisk beneath the deck lies a world darker, quieter, and older than the one above. This is the hold, the belly of the ship, where cargo is stored. Secrets are kept, and silence lingers like fog. You descend into it carefully, hand on damp rails, ducking beneath beams low enough to kiss your brow. The air is thick and still. Every sound is swallowed. You feel more than you hear. The floor beneath your boots is always wet. Not soaked, but slick, as though the sea itself whispers through the seams. Here lie barrels of salted meat, crates of flour, coils of rope, and iron tools wrapped in cloth. Everything smells of mold and metal, aged wood, and old dreams. A lantern hangs from a hook, barely piercing the gloom. Shadows stretch long and lazy. You check the barrels for leaks, the crates for rot. You listen for the slow drip of moisture. You count. You note. Never hurry. Down here, haste breeds accidents. And there are stories of men who slipped and vanished, of fires started by careless sparks, of spirits that dwell among the crates. You don't believe them, but you don't laugh either. The hold does not welcome laughter. Sometimes, when storms rage above, you are sent here to brace the cargo, to hold the belly steady while the spine shakes. You move in darkness, wedging timber, tying lines, feeling the ship twist like a waking animal. The noise is distant thunder, the groans of the hull like cries in a distant room. And through it all, the hold endures. It is the heartwood. It does not break. The crew rarely gathers here unless ordered. It is not a place of rest or refuge. It is duty, not comfort. Yet there is a strange peace in the hold, a sense of age, of permanence. The walls feel older than the sea itself. You place your palm on the planks, feel the grain beneath your skin, and wonder how many lives have passed through this space. How many hopes, how many losses. There are rats, of course, more than above. Their eyes shine in the dark. They move in silence, bold and calm. They know this place better than any man. They dance through the beams, over the barrels, beneath the cargo. They do not fear you. In some strange way, you envy them, their certainty, their purpose, their complete belonging. When you climb back up, the light of the deck blinds you for a moment. The wind feels new, the air alive. You carry the weight of the hold with you, its stillness, its darkness, its memory. You don't speak of it. You simply move on. A part of you remains below, in that sunless world of wood and salt and shadow dot. And when the ship lists or creaks too deeply in the night, you remember the hold. You picture it, undisturbed, bracing against the world. And you know, no matter what happens above, something below still holds. Asterisk, it begins with silence. A stillness so complete, it feels wrong. The wind fades, the sails sag, the sea flattens. Men glance at the sky without speaking. Clouds gather in strange formations, low and thick, like bruises in the sky. The birds vanish. The smell of the air changes, sharper, colder, metallic. You feel it in your bones before the first drop falls. Orders come quickly. Sails are reefed. Loose gear is stowed. Hatch covers sealed. Every man has a job, and every job must be done without error. Storms do not wait. They arrive when they wish, and they do not forgive. The deck becomes a theater of motion hands, on rope, feet braced, eyes narrowed. Voices rise, barked commands over growing wind. Then the sea lifts, a slow swell at first, like the breath of something ancient. Then more. The waves build, growing teeth. The ship groans. Rain slashes down. In sheets, wind howls through the rigging, turning ropes into whips, sails into beasts. The sky is black by midday. Lightning splits the clouds. Thunder roars like cannon fire. And the ship begins to dance. You hold on to rails, to ropes, to hope. Every step is a fight. The deck tilts madly, water rushing over your boots. Men shout. To be heard, their voices lost in the wind. Someone slips. Someone cries out. The ship lurches again, and still you move. Still you work. Still you hold. Because if you let go, even once, the sea will take you. Below, the hammocks swing violently. The hold groans. Sparrows knock against their bindings. Rats scream. Lanterns flicker and die. There is no safe place, only places less dangerous. You pray if you believe, or you curse, or you work harder. The storm does not care. It has no malice. It simply is. Wild, ancient, and absolute. The worst storms are not the loudest, but the longest. The ones that last for days. When your body aches with fatigue, your skin raw from wet and salt. When the cold gnaws at your fingers. When your world becomes one of gray and roar and motion. You sleep in ships, eat standing, speak only when needed. The storm becomes your sky, your sun, your God, and then, suddenly, it ends. The clouds break, the wind dies, the sea flattens, light returns. The ship breathes again, wounded but alive. You look around at faces drawn and pale, soaked and shaking, and you smile, not in joy, but in defiance. You survived. Again, later, when you lie in your hammock, the calm feels louder than the storm. You sway gently, your muscles remembering the chaos. And sleep comes quickly, not from peace, but from pure exhaustion. High above the deck, the rigging stretches like a web spun by gods. Lines crisscross the masts, climbing toward the sky in angles and arcs. This is the realm of the top man, agile, fearless, and half mad. Their feet find holds where none seem to exist. Their hands move with speed and certainty. To climb the rigging is to court the wind. You are called to help today. You strap on your harness, check the ropes, and begin your ascent. Hand over hand, boot over boot, up the ratlins. The ship grows smaller beneath you. The wind grows louder. Your heart beats faster. Every beam creaks beneath your weight. Every knot becomes sacred. You do not look down. At the top, the world is different. The air is thinner, the light clearer, the view infinite. You see the curve of the sea, the line of the horizon, the white crests of waves. The sails snap inches from your face. Their canvas, alive with force. You tie lines, adjust sails, shout down to the deck. Your voice is lost in the wind, but you shout anyway. It feels good to be heard by the sky. Mist clings to your clothes. Salt stings your eyes, but you move with purpose. The ropes sing beneath your hands. You become part of the ship's nervous system, reacting, adjusting, sensing. Every knot matters. Every second counts. The rigging is not forgiving. One mistake means a fall. It's one slip, and the sea becomes your sky. There are stories of men lost from the rigging, vanished in storms, struck by swinging booms, cut loose by frayed ropes. Their names are etched in memory, not stone. You say them under your breath, like a prayer. They remind you to be careful. They remind you to respect the height, the wind, the ship itself. When the work is done, you descend slowly. Your arms tremble. Your knees ache. The deck welcomes you like an old friend. You exhale, shake your hands, stretch your back, okay? And then you look up at the sails, billowing the ropes, stretching, the sky watching, okay? And you feel something close to pride. The rigging becomes a part of you, its lines, its knots, its rhythm. Even on land, your feet seek holds. Your hands grip railings with sailor strength. You dream of height, of wind, of sails. You carry the rigging in your bones. And so, each time you are called to climb, you do, not without fear, but with understanding. The rigging may be high, but it is not higher than your will. Asterisk knots are the silent language of the sea. Each one tells a story of purpose, of urgency, of trust. You learn them not from books, but from hands older than yours. A square not to join, a bowline to hold, a clove hitch to fasten. There are knots for sails, knots for cargo, knots for survival. On a ship, a knot is never just a knot. It is a promise that something will stay secure when the wind forgets to. Be kind. You sit on a coil of rope, fingers moving steadily, repeating motions until they live in your skin. The rope is rough, stiff with salt, but familiar. Its fibers bite your palm as you pull tight, forming a perfect loop, a strong bend, a quick release. Some knots must hold forever. Others must slip away in an instant. Knowing the difference can save your life. An old sailor watches you work, nodding occasionally. He has tied more knots than he has spoken words. His fingers are curled from cold and age, but still swift. He shows you a hitch used in storms, a splice for broken lines, a trick for frozen rope. He speaks quietly, like a priest offering a sacred ritual. You listen, you practice, you remember. Knot work is not just utility, it is rhythm, a way to pass time, a form of meditation. You tie and untie for hours, your thoughts drifting like smoke. You think of home, of songs, of nothing. The rope becomes your anchor, your distraction, your prayer beats, each twist and turn a breath, each loop a memory. The knots hold your thoughts as well as your sails. In moments of crisis, your hands move before your mind. The right knot emerges, quick and perfect. It is reflex, not reason. And when the sail holds, when the rope does not slip, you feel a quiet triumph. Not loud, not praised, just real. A small victory wrapped in hemp and salt. No one sees it. But the sea knows. When a day ends, you stow your lines, coil your ropes, tuck your knots like secrets into corners of the ship. They remain, holding, fast, unseen, but essential. A ship is a forest of knots, each one doing its part. You trust them. You made them. They are pieces of you, scattered throughout the vessel. Some knots remain long after their maker is gone, found months later, still strong, still true. Sailors say you can know a man by his knots. Loose ones mean laziness. Tight ones mean fear. Clean ones mean pride. You hope yours are remembered as precise, not for glory, but for safety. And so, with each knot you tie, you add a thread to the ship's story, a silent line of connection. Sailor to ship, ship to sea, sea to sky, bound by rope, hound by hands, bound by trust. Asterisk, you notice it most when it's gone. The scent of the sea, a mixture of salt, decay, life, and wind, clings to everything aboard the ship. Sails, skin, boots, breath. It lives in the creases of the wood, the folds of your coat, the strands of your hair. It is not pleasant. It is not foul. It simply is constant, like time, and deeply familiar in the early morning. The sea smells different, colder, cleaner. The mist rising off the water carries a sharper edge, like cold metal left in the dark. It wraps around your face as you lean over the rail, watching the ripples below. Sometimes you see jellyfish, translucent ghosts, drifting just beneath the surface. Sometimes you see nothing, blue and the smell of distance. When the sun climbs higher, the scent thickens. Heat draws out the oils from the deck, the sweat from your shirt, the brine from the ropes. It becomes earthy, tangy, alive. The ship smells like 1,000 lives lived too closely, too long, but you do not shrink from it. You breathe it in deeply. It tells you you're still moving, still part of something vast and restless. Storms change it. The sea turns metallic, electric, charged. Lightning ionizes the air. Rain sharpens the salt. You smell the storm before you see it, before you hear it. Crawls up your nose, sits on your tongue, makes the hair on your arms rise. The scent of a storm is warning, challenge, promise. Commands respect. You obey. There are rare days when the wind shifts and brings the scent of land. It's flowers, smoke, soil. Barely a whisper, but enough to remind you that somewhere beyond the horizon is solid ground. Home. or something close to it. You close your eyes and let the breeze carry the scent through you. For a moment, the ship fades. The sea pauses. You remember something sweet. The galley adds its own perfume. Boiled meat, burnt bread, old grease. It mixes with tar and sweat until the ship smells like labor itself. Your clothes absorb it. Your skin releases it. On shore, people notice. They wrinkle their noses, say you smell like fish, or mold, or rot. But you smile because they do not understand. You smell like life at sea, and that is not something you can wash off at night. The smell softens, the air cools, the wind carries more water than salt. You lie in your hammock, the scent of the sea in your hair, your blanket, your bones. You breathe slowly, deeply, letting it fill you. It soothes, steadies, it sings you to sleep and in your dreams. The sea smells the same, endless, salty, strange. Home asterisk sailors are not men of science, but of signs. On a ship, superstitions become survival tools, passed from mouth to mouth like compass bearings. You learn them quickly. Never whistle on deck. It invites the wind to misbehave. Never rename a ship. It curses her soul. Always salute the sun on your first watch. It brings a safe return. These beliefs are not questioned. Fate, like the tide, there is a nail hammered into the main mast, untouched by time. No one knows who placed it there, but no one removes it. It is believed to hold the ship's luck. Coin lies beneath the foremast, sealed with pitch. It was placed there before the keel was laid. If it ever disappears, they say, the ship will follow. You pass these signs daily, never speaking of them, but always aware. Birds are omens. Albatross are sacred, a sign of calm seas. To harm one is to court disaster. Gulls mean land is near. The bird follows the ship for days. The crew watches it closely. Is it guiding or warning? A black feather found on deck is kept like a relic. Some wear it tucked behind the ear, warding off bad fortune. Some toss it into the sea with a silent plea. Even the wind has moods. A sudden shift from the south means change. A warm breeze at night means visitors in dreams. A still air at dawn might mean sickness. The old men feel these things in their bones. They rub their wrists, scan the sky, mutter to the sounds. You learn to trust them. Their silence speaks more than weather charts ever could. Food has its own rules. Bread must be broken by hand, never cut with a knife. Salt must never be spilled. If it is, it must be thrown over the left shoulder, back into the sea. Sharing food with a rat is believed to grant protection. If it accepts, if it refuses, the day will go badly. Most men try once. Few try twice. The dead are whispered about, never named aloud. When someone dies at sea, a piece of their clothing is kept hidden aboard until land is reached. It is said this keeps their spirit calm, prevents it from lingering in the sails or settling in the hold. Stories abound of voices heard in the fog, of hammocks that swing with no wind, of names whispered through timbers. Dreams are taken seriously. If you dream of drowning, you must tell no one, or the sea might listen. If you dream of a black cat, you are watched all day. If you dream of home, someone else will take ill. Men trade stories over breakfast, what they saw, what they felt, what it might mean. These exchanges are soft, solemn. Near the galley sits an old barrel, cracked and stained, its top smooth from years of elbows. It serves no purpose now, except as a seat. But around it, during quiet hours, sailors gather, and stories flow like rum. Tales of lost ports, ghosts, ships, treasures buried under foreign sands. Lies, perhaps, but beautiful ones. And in this life, beauty is rare enough to be sacred. An old man named Briggs always sits first. His beard is white, his voice hoarse from decades of salt. He begins with the same line every time. This happened before the war. Mind you, the one with no winner. No one knows what war he means. No one asks. He tells of sea monsters, of ships swallowed whole, of women with eyes like candlelight. We listen, not for truth, but for escape. You hear of ports where the wine sings, where the streets are paved with silver, where storms never come. Of mutinies put down with the glance of captains who speak to whales, of islands that appear only under certain moons. The men nod, add details, contradict gently. The stories grow with every telling, like barnacles on truth. Heavy, slow, strangely beautiful. Some nights, a younger sailor tells a story, his voice unsure, his hands fidgeting. He speaks of a woman back home, of a promise made, a letter never sent. The crew listens in silence, not mocking. Everyone aboard carries a similar ache. Distance wears different faces, but it feels the same. The barrel holds more than stories, holds memory. It holds the ache of time, the sweetness of lies, the laughter that breaks routine. Around it, men become more than rope pullers and deck swabbers. They become poets, dreamers, fools. 'Tis a sacred space, not marked by prayer, but by presence. One night, the barrel is empty. Briggs does not appear. He fell ill that morning. The stories do not come. The silence is loud. Men sit anyway, boots scuffing the deck, mugs cradled in tired hands. No one speaks, but the barrel is not empty. It holds absence, and that is its own kind of truth. When Briggs returns, days later, weaker but smiling, the first story he tells is of a voyage he made in a dream. It was quiet, he says. No wind, no waves, just stars. And a voice he didn't recognize, singing from the water. We nod. We do not ask questions. We simply listen. And the barrel listens too. So if you find yourself aboard, near the galley, and see that old barrel, sit for a while. Bring a lie, a truth, a memory. Add your voice to the wood. Let the barrel carry it forward. Let the ship remember. Asterisk, nothing on a ship stays whole forever. The sea gnaws, the wind tears, the salt corrodes. Repairs are constant, as vital as food or water. When something breaks, it must be fixed, not later, not tomorrow, but now. A torn sail, a cracked spar, a leak in the hull, each demands attention. The crew becomes carpenters, blacksmiths, tailors, and doctors. Hands skilled in more than one art. The boatswain's voice rings out with purpose. Men gather planks, rope, pitch, canvas. The tools are simple. Hammers, nails, hooks, needles, but they must be used with care. Each repair carries weight. A poor stitch could cost a sail. A loose board could take on water. You work with your whole body. Sweat runs in lines. Muscles burn. Focus sharpens like a knife's edge. When repairing sails, you climb the rigging. The canvas snaps like thunder above. You cling with knees and teeth, stitching with thick twine and frozen fingers. Your thread darkens with blood from your thumb, but you keep sewing. The wind will not wait. It demands motion. You answer with stitches that hold like promises. No one thanks you. The ship does. Woodwork requires different strength. A cracked beam means long hours below deck, hammering in a cramped corner where breath turns sour. You work by lantern light, bending and pounding, sealing gaps with resin that sticks to skin. You whisper curses or prayers, or both. The tools echo in the wood, a rhythm of hope and fear. You listen to the sound and know if the fix will hold. Some repairs are clever, using spare sails for tents, broken oars for masts, cloth wrapped, tied around leaky barrels. The ship becomes a puzzle of solutions, patched with whatever lies close. Sailors pride themselves on invention. Bent nail can save a voyage. A rag soaked in tar can buy you another day. The sea respects those who make do. You learn to see danger before it strikes. A line too tight, a deck too slick, a hinge that winds before it snaps. The ship speaks in small signs. You must listen. When the wind is quiet, you check the knots. When the sea is calm, you oil the hinges. You do not wait for disaster. You dance ahead of it, silently, at the end of a long day of repairs. Your hands are black, your back stiff, your breath slow. But the ship sails smoother. The creaks are gentler. The sails fuller. You feel it in your bones, a balance restored. You sit on the edge of the deck, legs dangling over water, and breathe deeply. The ocean nods, approving dot, and in your dreams, you mend things, ropes, sails, hearts. It's always with your hands, always quietly. You wake to the scent of pitch, the echo of hammer on wood, and the faint smile of something fixed before it broke. Asterisk, the call for shore leave spreads like fire through. Dry sails. After weeks at sea, the promise of land feels impossible. Yet the coastline appears, distant, green, real. The crew leans over the rails, eyes wide, nostrils flaring. The scent of earth, of trees, of life not soaked in salt. You feel it too, a tug in your chest, somewhere between relief and fear. Docking is a ritual. Lines are thrown, sails dropped, anchors lowered. The ship groans like a beast allowed to rest. Men shift from sailor to visitor in hours. Hair is combed, boots shined, faces washed, more or less. Coin is counted, pockets checked. Some whisper prayers, okay? Others spit into the sea. The air buzzes with impatience. The first step on land is strange. The ground doesn't move. It feels wrong. Your knees bend to a rhythm that's no longer there. You sway for hours, even while standing still. The land is too quiet, the air too dry, and yet it welcomes you. Grass underfoot, wood beneath boots, smells that make you ache, bread, flowers, fire. You are home, even if it's not your home. Taverns fill quickly, ale flows, music stumbles from corners. Sailors laugh louder than they should, weep when they drink too much, shout across rooms like the wind is still howling. Fights break out, then fade just as fast. Arms around shoulders, coins traded for smiles. Some vanish with strangers. Some simply walk the streets in silence, amazed by trees. Letters are sent, or not. Some men write carefully, words chosen with care. Others stare at blank pages for hours, then fold them empty and seal them anyway. Few receive news, births, deaths, changes too vast to grasp in one sitting. They read and reread, or crumple and forget. The land is not kind to all supplies are gathered. Food, tools, canvas, new rope, everything touched by many hands. Prices debated, bribes exchanged. Rumors fly of war, of gold, of pirates near the cove, of ships that vanished, of storms yet to come. The shore speaks its own language, fast and full of noise. The sea listens quietly. When shore leave ends, the mood shifts, feet grow heavier, goodbyes are shorter. The sea calls, but not all want to answer. Some desert, some return willingly. You step aboard again, boots thudding against wood that creaks. Like an old friend, the ship smells familiar. The sails breathe again. Okay. The ropes tighten, and as the land fades behind you, its trees turning to shadows, you feel the sea welcome you back. Not with joy, but with understanding. You were never meant to stay. You belong to the wind. He walks alone when the deck is quiet, the sails still, the stars bright. The night watchman, a shadow among shadows. He knows every creak of wood, every whisper of rope. His feet make no sound, His eyes miss nothing. While others sleep, he walks. His lantern glows dim, not to disturb, only to guide. His coat is thick, patched from years of wear. His breath fogs before him, counts his steps, checks the lines, listens for the small wrongness that means something big. A loose rope, a shifting crate, the scurry of too many rats. Touches everything, rail, sail, mast, like a priest blessing his temple. The ship trusts him, so do the men. He hums as he walks, a low tune with no name. It's passed from one watchman to another, through time, through storms. It comforts him. It comforts the ship. He pauses sometimes to look at the sky, to check the stars, to make sure they haven't moved. They never do. But he checks anyway. Ritual is everything in the night. If someone wakes screaming, he is there. If the bell must be rung, he rings it. If a man cries in his sleep, he stays close. The night is not cruel, just full of echoes. The watchman absorbs them. He walks with silence wrapped around him like a cloak. He asks for nothing. He expects nothing. He keeps watch because someone must know. No one thanks him in the morning. They rarely see him. He sleeps in the day, eats alone, speaks little, but they know he is there, like the kill, like the compass. He is part of the ship. When he is not seen, the men feel it. The night is louder, the shadows deeper. They sleep less soundly. He writes in a small book, a line for each watch. Wind.com. All quiet. Clouds gathering west. Rats near galley again. His script is tight, slanted, patient. He does not write for others, only to remember. Someday, someone might read it, or not. He doesn't mind. The record matters. The remembering matters. Some say he never sleeps. That he once walked through a fire in the hold. That he speaks to the ship when no one listens. Sailors love their legends. The watchman never confirms, never denies. He only smiles, very faintly, and keeps walking, step by step, watch after watch, night after night. And as you lie in your hammock, rocked by the rhythm of the sea, you feel his presence, a soft glow beyond the hatch, a shadow moving past. And you know, while you dream, someone watches. And the ship, for this night, is safe. Asterisk, the compass sits at the helm like a silent priest, its needle forever trembling toward true north. It does not speak, but it commands trust without question. Sailors glance at it like one glances at the face of someone they love, but fear, seeking reassurance, yet bracing for change. Its delicate balance holds the entire fate of the vessel. A wrong reading could spell disaster, yet it never boasts, never blinks. In the vast emptiness of the ocean, the compass offers one promise: direction. Its brass casing is dulled by salt and age. But inside, the needle glides over oil as if dancing to music only it can hear. It reacts to forces you cannot see, responding to the earth's pull as naturally as a gull rides the wind. Men clean it carefully with soft cloths, polish it gently, speak around it in hushed tones. To insult the compass is to tempt fate. It becomes more than a tool. It becomes a spirit, an oracle, a partner on a journey where everything else is unknown. By day, the navigator pairs it with ink and paper. He bends over yellow charts, marking angles and calculating distances using instruments that seem more magical than mechanical. His hands are steady, his focus unbroken, his silence respected. He charts progress in degrees, minutes, and marks invisible to most, while others guess at direction. He confirms it, aligning needle and map until the ship's soul aligns with the world's invisible veins. But at night, the compass shares its burden with the stars. When the clouds part, the sky becomes the captain's cathedral. Every sailor learns to pick out Orion, the Big Dipper, and Polaris, the steadfast North Star. These burning giants, so far away they might as well be myths, take on personal meaning at sea. They do not move, though the ship spins. They do not fade, though men grow weak. And when one shines bright enough to light the sails, it is taken as a blessing. When storms rise or fog falls, the stars vanish, and the compass bears the weight alone. Its needle is watched even more closely, as if willing it to stay true. There is a quiet tension on those nights. You can feel it in the crew's eyes, in the tightness of their voices. No one says they're afraid, but they step softer. The deck seems louder. Every man becomes a shadow, waiting for the sky to return. Some whisper that a compass can sense a lie, that it spins oddly when a man hides something, or when death is near. Others say it simply listens to the ocean's breath, the moon's pull, the fear in your chest. Whatever its truth, it's always treated with reverence. Ku never knock it. You never leave it uncovered. And if the needle sways too much, even the bravest man pauses to wonder what he did wrong. And so the ship sails, guided by an arrow made of metal and a sky made of fire. You lie in your hammock, the waves below and the stars above, and you remember this truth: there is always something pointing the way, even when you are lost, even when you are tired, whether it is a compass in the captain's hand or a constellation in the sky. Something ancient still wants you to get home. Asterisk. It starts slowly, like a shadow growing under a door. A cough from someone who usually laughs. A missed meal from a man who never skips. No one speaks of it at first, because naming illness is like inviting it closer. Okay? But the signs multiply: pale faces, shivering hands, slower footsteps. A man sits alone, wrapped in a coat under full sun. Another lays back in his hammock too early. And suddenly, the ship's air feels heavier, thicker, harder to breathe. The doctor is called, a quiet figure with stained fingers and red-rimmed eyes. He carries satchels of crushed herbs, old papers, and hope worn thin from too many voyages. His voice is low, his presence steady, and his silence says what the crew does not want to hear. He begins his rounds, marking hammocks with chalk, measuring pulses with his fingertips, listening to chests as if trying to hear the ocean inside them. Some men get better, others drift. A space is cleared in the lower deck, a kind of floating sick ward strung together with canvas and trembling breath. Hammocks are hung farther apart. Buckets of salt water are placed nearby. The air smells of vinegar, cloves, and sweat. Men assigned to care for the sick wear scarves over their mouths and hold their breath longer than necessary. The rest of the crew walks faster through that section, avoiding eye contact with the men inside the curtains. Meals are quieter now. Laughter has vanished. Even the clatter of bowls sounds wrong, too loud, too alive. The sick moaned softly, their dreams louder than their waking hours. Okay. Sometimes they call out names, wives, children, people the crew will never meet. And when one man begins to pray in a language no one else speaks, no one stops him. In that space, all prayers are welcome. The sea listens to every tongue. When someone dies, the ritual is swift but solemn. His body is wrapped in sailcloth, stitched, shut with heavy thread, and weighed with iron. The crew lines the deck, heads bowed. A bell is rung once, not loudly, but just enough for the ocean to hear. Then the splash. The water accepts him without ceremony, without refusal. He becomes part of the sea now, and part of the ship's silence forever. The doctor writes there, names in a small black book. His handwriting is precise, the ink carefully preserved, the dates exact. He never weeps, never falters, but sometimes he holds the book a little longer before closing it. That's how you know it hurt more than usual. The crew respects his distance. He carries something none of them can. Memory measured in ink and death wrapped in canvas. And as you lie in your hammock, eyes fixed on the dim lantern above, you listen to the breath of the man next to you. Count each inhale like beads on a rosary, as if your attention alone might keep him alive. You do not pray aloud, but in your mind you whisper again and again the one thing every sailor fears and longs for. Let us see the shore. Let us all see the shore. There is music in the ship, though no one plays an instrument. It is in the creak of the beams, the groan of the hull, the sigh of the sails above. The ocean provides percussion, waves slapping the side, water bubbling under the keel, rain tapping softly against the deck. These sounds never stop. They form a lullaby for the restless, a hymn for those who listen. Silence at sea is not quiet. It is a different kind of sound entirely. Your ears become tuned to its layers. You know when the ropes are too tight? Just by how they hum in the wind. You hear the footsteps of different crewmates by their weight, their rhythm. The cook shuffles. The first mate stomps. The doctor walks like fog. When the ship is healthy, it sings. When it's wounded, it moans in a lower key. Sound becomes signal. Noise becomes knowledge. At night, the noises change. Hammocks sway, chains rattle lightly, and the rigging whistles high above. Somewhere, a sailor mutters in his sleep. Somewhere else, a rat scurries, then stops. The sea seems louder in the dark, more present, more alive. You lie awake sometimes, counting the pauses between waves, timing the groan of the mainmast like the ticking of an invisible clock. A storm is announced by sound before sight. First, the wind loses its softness. Then the canvas begins to flap with urgency. The deck groans beneath your boots. The bell may ring out of rhythm, as if even time grows afraid. Lightning, when it comes, cracks like iron splitting. Thunder follows, deep and shaking. Yet amid the chaos, there is still structure. The ship knows what to say. Sailors develop a quiet language built entirely on sound. A sharp whistle means danger. A low hum while working signals patience. Songs, when sung, are half chanted, half breathed, not for performance, but for timing. Even grief has its music. A body lowered to the splash of waves. A bell rung once. The sound of goodbye. When you finally go ashore, the silence is unnatural. No creak, no canvas, no sea, just stillness. At first, it's welcome. Then, it's unsettling. You miss the sound of motion, of purpose, of life bound by rhythm. The ship stays in your ears like an echo. Even in sleep, you hear it, especially in sleep. And so, you lie in your hammock, eyes closed, listening, not for words, but for comfort, for the soft language of wood and wind, water and rope, the song of a vessel that never rests, and in its voice you find rest. Every map aboard the ship is incomplete. Even the finest charts, drawn with precision and inked by experts, leave blank spaces, coastlines unfinished, depths unmarked, dangers unnamed. These are the places sailors talk about in whispers, pointing with calloused fingers and cautious eyes. No one's returned from here. This reef swallows ships. There's nothing there, but something watches, after. All is not made for certainty. The navigator marks courses in pencil, so changes can be made. Currents shift, winds betray. A plan today is a mistake tomorrow. Adjusts constantly, erasing, redrawing, pausing midline to listen for the wind. There is no shame in uncertainty. Only death comes from pride. And so he learns to sail between truths and guesses. Like threading a needle through fog dots sometimes, you're asked to hold a corner of the map. You stare at the parchment, its brown edges curling from age. It smells of old wood, sea salt, and candle wax. Your fingers brush the inked lines, trailing coastlines you'll never see. Dragons are not drawn here, but they are felt. Okay? In the empty places, the imagination grows bold. And that boldness is part of sailing to dodge stories, fill the gaps. An island of singing stones, a trench so deep it hums, a bay where no wind ever blows. The men trade tales to make sense of the unknown. Some say these places move, others believe they're only found by ships that are already lost. Every crew has a map in their heads, a map of hopes, warnings, things best left undisturbed. When land is sighted, the navigator checks the map with both relief and suspicion. Match. Is it where it should be? Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. That's the sea never wrong, but never fully known. Even the stars above, so constant, offer no map for what lies beneath. The ocean is not generous with its secrets. The captain trusts the maps, but more than that, he trusts his gut. There are times he sails directly off the chart, chasing wind, running from it, or seeking something only he senses. The crew watches, questions silently, obeys. Sometimes that instinct brings them home. Sometimes it brings them closer to the edge of something no ink has ever captured. And so the ship sails through known waters toward the unknown. And you, holding the edge of a map that forgets to name everything, begin to understand. Not all. Guidance is drawn in lines. Some comes in the form of courage. Some comes in the form of stillness. And some come simply from sailing forward, even when the map says, here, there be nothing. Asterisk, in a small chest beneath your hammock lies a bundle of papers, worn at the corners and scented faintly of wax and sweat. These are your letters written to people who may never read them. A sister, a father, a child you've never met. Son, our confessions. Some are apologies. Others are simply thoughts too heavy to carry alone. Ink, blots, stain a few. Pages tear at the folds. Okay? You keep them close. You write at night when the deck is quiet and the sea is soft. Bent over a crate, candle flickering, you press the nib into paper and begin. Today we passed a whale. I dreamed of you again. There's a man here who sings to himself while tying knots. The letters do not follow structure. They breathe as you do, uneven, honest, afraid. You don't hide your truth here. You let it spill. Some letters are never finished. You stop mid-sentence, overcome by memory or motion. Come. Others are rewritten a dozen times. You never like how they sound. One letter, addressed to no one, contains only the words, I'm still alive, repeated until the page runs out. That one you folded slowly, carefully, and tucked deeper into the chest. It matters, even without a name. On shore leave, you sometimes mail one, but most you keep. You fear they'll be lost, or read, or misunderstood, so they stay with you like quiet companions. They remind you who you are and who you were before salt took your scent and the sea stole your stillness. You read them, sometimes only to see how your handwriting has changed. Other sailors write too, or they don't. Some mutter their letters aloud, letting the wind carry them. Some carve initials into the mast. One man keeps a note from his mother pinned inside his coat. It's torn and nearly unreadable, but he touches it before every storm. Words, even faded ones, hold weight. There are letters burned in moments of rage, words never meant to live, just are lost in storms, their ink washed into the sea. You wonder if the fish stream in sentences. Some part of you floats now in the deep. Perhaps that's what becomes of unspoken love. It turns to driftwood and finds another shore. And so you write, quietly, often, to no one, or to everyone, to stay sane, to stay human, to remember that beyond the waves, someone once waited. Someone might still wait, or maybe not. The writing itself is a kind of waiting. And in it, You are home. Asterisk, hidden beneath the regular cargo, behind a panel that creaks only when the ship lists hard to port, lies the smuggler's hold. It's not marked on any diagram, and only a few men know of its presence. Narrow and low, it smells of oil, mold, and secrets. Inside are crates marked falsely tea, that is really opium, bolts of silk folded around pistols, books that hold, messages hidden in margins. It's a silent compartment, built for trust and betrayal in equal measure. The first time you're shown the compartment, it's like being handed the weight of another man's lie. The officer who opens it says nothing. He watches your face as the lantern's light falls across contraband. You don't ask questions, you only nod, understanding that silence here is more valuable than gold. You help seal it again, your fingers brushing the wood that hides the ship's second soul. It's like tucking in a ghost. Some sailors say it's cursed that anything hidden below the law will eventually rise above the waves in judgment. Others see it as survival. Its trade is uncertain. Coin is fickle. The smuggler's hold is a promise that if all else fails, there will be something to sell, something to barter, something to live for. You do not look at it often, but you think about it more than you admit. There are rules unspoken around the compartment. Talk of it during meals. No mention of it in storms. You never check it in daylight, lay under moon or lantern. Its contents shift between ports. Today, wine. Tomorrow, powder. Always valuable, always risky. Sometimes you don't even know what you're carrying. You're only told to guard it, not question it. Sea has its own economy, lawless, salt-stained, necessary. During calm nights, you lie awake, wondering if the weight of those secrets slows the ship, if the wind notices, if the stars care. You imagine a customs officer boarding, his boots thudding on the deck, his eyes too sharp. You imagine what you'd say, what you'd deny, what you'd carry in your heart if the hold were ever opened and the ship's belly exposed. It's a weight that never leaves you. But there are also days when the hold saves you, when a port refuses your goods, but the hidden ones fetch a fortune. When a bribe smooths a rough conversation, and the captain uses the contents to secure repairs, or medicine, or peace. In those moments, you see it not as a crime, but a lifeline, a dark well from which survival is drawn in times of need. Ansel, the ship continues, both honest and not. The smuggler's hold becomes part of your rhythm. You check its door as you walk past, not obviously, but enough to know it hasn't been touched. You count crates by instinct. You learn to read tension in the quartermaster's shoulders. And sometimes you dream of it, the small space, the hush it demands, the danger it represents. You wake sweating, unsure whether it was fear or thrill that gripped you. Some say the ship is two vessels, the one above, with its sails and stars, and the one below, shadowed and still. You are part of both. You live in the light, but you serve the dark, and there is no shame in that. Only awareness, only balance, only silence. The sea does not judge. It only swallows what floats too close to the surface. And so the smuggler's hold remains hidden, quiet, essential, like every man's secret heart, tucked behind wood and trust, waiting in the dark. You do not speak of it, but it is always there. The ship is never quite empty because of it. Asterisk aboard every ship, the skin of its sailors tells a second story, not written in ink, but in tattoos, crude, faded, sacred. Compass on the chest for direction, swallow on the collarbone for safe return, crosses on fingers, anchors on arms, names across ribs. These marks are not decoration. They are survival. A map of pain, of pride, of promises made when the sea was louder than the heart. You receive your first tattoo in a port you barely remember, in a room that smelled of rum and sweat. The man who inked it said little. His hands were steady, his needle sharper than his eyes. As he worked, you thought of home, of stormy nights, of things you'd lost. The ink burned. The image faded fast, but the memory did not. Not you carry it still. Just above your elbow, a symbol only you understand. Some tattoos are warnings, daggers, skulls, sharks, symbols that say, do not test me. Others are wishes, hearts with initials, birds in flight, stars aligned. Many are prayers disguised as images placed on skin because the sea respects art made of pain. You learn to read a man's past by his marks, where he sailed. He's buried, what he fears, what he longs for. Still, there is a quiet ritual when a new man shows his tattoos. No questions, only nods. A sleeve rolled up, a chest revealed. Sometimes a story is told. More often, it isn't. The ink speaks, louder than words. And if a man has no tattoos, he's either very brave, very new, or hiding something deeper than ink could hold. In the dead of night, by lantern light, men sometimes tattoo each other, with needles heated in fire, with ink mixed from soot and spit. The process is slow, painful, intimate. One man sings to distract, another pours rum. The skin bleeds, but no one flinches. It is not vanity. It is bonding. In a world where the sea erases names, tattoos are the only things that stay. The captain has only one, a serpent coiled around his wrist. No one asks what it means, but when storms rise, he grips the wheel with that hand, and the serpent seems to move. Some say it's alive. Some say it's a warning. You believe it's both. The older sailors' tattoos fade into scars. The ink runs with age, blurring truth into legend. But the story remains. Always. Not all tattoos are visible. Some are on backs, hidden from mirrors. Some are placed where only lovers once saw. A few are never shown again, covered by new ink. New memories. A man changes. So do his marks. But no one forgets what lies beneath. The sea remembers. And so does the skin. One day, you catch your reflection in a basin of rainwater. You see your own tattoos, warped by ripples. For a moment, they look like someone else's. Then the water stills. Can you realize this is who you've become? Not the boy who left shore, but the sailor, carved by tide and time and ink. And when your voyage ends and your body returns to earth or sea, these marks will remain a while longer. A message for the world. I was here, I sailed, I endured, I remembered. Asterisk, it arrives before the crew stirs, before the bell rings, before the sky changes from ink to ash. The morning fog, thick as wool, soft as breath. It clings to the ship like a second sail, draping across the deck, coiling around masts, slipping into seams. Sound becomes muffled, edges blur. The ship seems suspended in space, afloat in silence, held between one world and another. You wake into it, unsure if you're still dreaming. Footsteps are quieter in fog. Boots thud, softer. Voices hush themselves instinctively. Men move slower, eyes scanning for outlines that no longer exist. The sea disappears, thaws, the horizon vanishes. You can no longer tell where the water ends and the air begins. You walk the deck as if blindfolded, every familiar thing now foreign. Ropes loom like ghosts, barrels breathe mist. Even the sails seem to shiver. Dot fog demands attention. It has no anger, no noise, but it carries weight. You check the compass more often. You listen to the hull. You speak in gestures, not words. The captain appears more frequently, scanning with narrowed eyes. His voice is lower, more deliberate. He touches the rail as if asking it to whisper news. In fog, experience speaks louder than orders, and even the sea waits. Time stretches, minutes, feel like hours. Every sound takes on meaning. A splash, too close. A creak, unfamiliar. A cough, more human than usual. You feel the ship as much as you see it. Your hands brush the rails more often. Your boots walk closer to the center. The world has shrunk to 100 paces in any direction, and anything beyond that is legend. Below, deck, the air feels no different, but men sense the change. They speak less, they eat slower. Superstitions awaken. Fog is a veil. They say a shroud, a signal. Some say it hides death. Others say it offers protection. Kay, sailor, once claimed he heard singing in it, a woman's voice, distant and warm. No one laughed. Fog doesn't allow laughter. When the fog finally lifts, not quickly, but like a curtain being drawn back by a tired hand, the world returns in pieces. First the mast, then the rails, then the waves. The sun breaks through like a question. You blink against it, as if seeing the sea for the first time again. The horizon reappears, wide and patient, pretending it had never left, and life aboard resumes. But something lingers, a quiet slowness. Fog changes things. It reminds you how easily certainty dissolves, how fast direction can vanish. You feel humbled, grounded, grateful for the sound of another man's voice, the solid plank under your foot, the brightness of a familiar shape emerging from white. The fog doesn't return every morning, but when it does, you welcome it with the same mixture of awe and caution. It is not friend or foe, it simply is. A visitor who teaches without speaking, who disappears without farewell, and who leaves behind a silence you carry in your bones. And later, as you lie in your hammock, eyes closed, you remember that quiet, that softness, that feeling of being lost without fear. You exhale slowly and let your thoughts vanish into mist. Asterisk, it began, like many things at sea, with whispers, a delay in rations, tay, a rumor about stolen coin, a command that felt more insult. Then order. No fists were thrown, no blades drawn, but tension spread like mold in the seams of the hull. Slow, quiet, sticky. Men eyed one another during meals. Fewer jokes, more glances, less singing, more silence. The ship grew quieter and louder at the same time. No one used the word mutiny, not aloud, but it hung in the air, thick as smoke. You could see it in the way men grouped during breaks, backs turned to the officers. In the sudden stillness, when the captain walked past, the long stares from men who usually looked away. It wasn't anger that filled the deck. It was calculation, not passion, but math, a question of numbers, of odds. The cause was not clear. Maybe it never is. The quartermaster blamed the cook. The cook blamed the captain. The captain said nothing. Some said the ship had been cursed since the last port. Others claimed the compass had spun too long that morning. One man accused the wind. In truth, it didn't matter. The spark had been struck. Now all anyone feared was the match. The officers noticed. Of course, they moved differently, kept hands near weapons, spoke more often, made rounds at hours one, even began praying out loud before bed, loud enough for others to hear. Fear wears many uniforms. Some call it vigilance, others call it cowardice, but all of them watched the crew with the same wary eyes. Then, one night, it broke, not in violence, but in voice. A sailor shouted across the deck, drunk, or brave, or both. He demanded answers, called the captain a liar. For a moment time stopped. Men froze. Hands hovered. Then the captain stepped forward. Come. Still. He said 3 words. We talk now. They did. 4 hours. No punishments. No yelling. It's men speaking like tired fathers around a dying fire. Some sobbed. Others laughed at things not funny. Stories poured out. so did truths. By dawn, something had shifted. Nothing was fixed, but something had softened. And when the bell rang, every man answered. That day, the sails caught more wind than usual. The ropes felt lighter. The deck didn't groan as much, okay? The captain walked with his hands behind his back again, yet the cook whistled. The tension remained, but it changed shape, from threat to memory, from mutiny to lesson. A storm that broke before it began. No one ever spoke of it again. Not because it was forbidden, but because it wasn't needed. Everyone remembered. Everyone knew. And sometimes, knowing is enough. The sea forgave, or forgot, or both. And now, when men argue, they pause longer, listen closer, because they remember what nearly was, and what wasn't. At the very back of the ship, mounted just above the waterline, hangs a single lantern. It burns through every night, no matter the weather. Its flame flickers inside thick glass, casting a golden path across the black waves. It is the ship's final eye, watching the ocean left behind. A soft farewell to the miles already sailed. A beacon not for the world ahead, but for the ghosts astern. The stern lantern is tended by one man, the same, always. His name barely known, his face rarely seen, but he trims the wick, checks the oil, wipes the glass. Every dusk, just before the stars appear, he lights it, with hands steady as prayer. He shields the flame until it catches, then steps away. No one thanks him. No one tells him to do it. But if the lantern goes out, men will notice. Superstition holds that as long as the lantern burns. The ship is safe from betrayal, that if its light flickers during calm seas, someone has lied. It reflects not the sea, but the souls aboard. You've seen men stare into it for minutes, as if seeking answers. Others cross themselves as they pass. Few even whisper names of lost friends, broken promises, or unborn hopes. When storms rise, the lantern is nearly drowned in spray. It swings violently, the flame shrinking to a quiver. Fear it will vanish, but it never does. It fights like a heartbeat, a small defiance against wind and wave. And in the darkest nights, when no stars shine, its glow is the only thing you trust. It's a reminder that someone behind you still believes you'll survive. There is comfort in its constancy. You check it without thinking. During watch, you glance over your shoulder, looking not at the horizon ahead, but at the light behind. It tells you you're still whole, that the ship is still moving, that even if the future is fog, the past is lit. However dimly, no sailor ever touches it without permission, not even the captain. It belongs to something older than command. Some say it's connected to a lantern on another ship, a sister vessel lost years ago. That one burns too, somewhere, for someone else. Whether true or not, the idea warms your chest in the coldest nights. One evening, the lantern didn't light. The man who tended it had fallen ill. Another tried, but the flame wouldn't hold. The glass cracked. The oil ran thin. That night, a gull struck the mast. A rope snapped. A man lost his finger to a pulley. Coincidence? Perhaps. But no one let the lantern go untended again. Now, as you lie in your hammock, rocked gently by a tired tide, you imagine the lantern still burning. Its glow dancing on the waves like memory itself. And in its flicker, you feel not fear, but faith. Not in charts or orders, but in the silent light that says, we came this far, we can go farther still. And so the lantern stays quiet, constant, kind. A little sun behind the ship, reminding all who sail that no night is complete without a light to leave behind. Asterisk at first glance. There is little need for blades aboard a ship. Sails are managed with rope, not steel. Fish are caught with lines, not spears. And most of the crew handle wood and wind, not enemies. But every man carries a blade, tucked into a boot, tied at the waist, hidden in a trunk. Not for show, not for war, but because the sea, despite its water, has a way of hardening everything it touches, including men. The ritual of sharpening begins at dusk, when the tasks of the day wind down, and the last light glints off steel like a soft warning. Men gather quietly, sometimes alone, sometimes in twos. A whetstone, worn smooth from years of use, is pulled from a pouch or a tin box. The blade is held, inspected, tested against a thumbnail or a piece of thread, and then the sound begins. Long, even strokes. It is not fast work, not careless. Each stroke is deliberate, as if the blade must be convinced to become dangerous. Again, sparks don't fly, and flames aren't involved. Only friction, patience, and the soft scrape that becomes a rhythm. Some hum as they work. Others stay completely silent. The sound spreads across the deck like the whisper of ghosts polishing their voices. You learn quickly that each man sharpens differently. Some use oil, some use spit, some nothing at all. Few speak to their blades, as if the steel remembers every hand it has passed through. Names are etched in some hilts. Others are wrapped in cloth, passed down from a father, a brother, or a man who didn't return from shore leave. The stories of the blades are never shared lightly. A sharpened blade is not a threat. It is readiness for cutting sail in a storm, for freeing a caught limb, for protecting what little is yours in a foreign port. It represents control when the sea takes so much from you. In the blade, there is certainty. It's in its edge, a kind of quiet justice, swift, clean, final done. No fights break out during sharpening. It is understood that this time is sacred. Even the most brash sailor keeps his eyes down. Even old grudges wait. The officers don't interrupt. They sharpen, too. The captain has a knife that folds, the blade curved like a wave. He sharpens it with the same calm he uses to chart storms. Some men never use their blades, but still sharpen them daily, as if the ritual alone keeps danger away. The act becomes something more, a meditation, a reminder, a tether. When the edge is right, it sings against the stone, high, clean note that only the sharpest metal makes. That sound means peace, not violence, completion, not threat. Occasionally, a new recruit will forget the ritual, his blade dull, his fingers careless. He is not scolded. He is watched, and eventually he is handed a stone. No words, just an offer. If he accepts, he is taught slowly, firmly, like a son being shown how to light a fire without burning the house. If he refuses, the ship remembers. Blades are kept wrapped, close and clean. They are not flaunted. If one is drawn during a dispute, there is no shouting. It's only cold stillness and the sound of a dozen hands slipping toward hilts. It is a language of tension, older than words. Most arguments end before that moment arrives. The fear is enough. And the memory of metal is stronger than pride. On nights when the sea is calm and the stars are clear, the sharpening continues, longer, not from need, but from comfort. The scrape of steel against stone is more soothing than silence. You find yourself joining in even when your blade is already perfect. The act becomes less about edge and more about balance, about remembering who you are beneath the salt. And when you sleep, the rhythm echoes, not in dreams, but in your hands. You wake with fingers curled as if still gripping the handle, and before breakfast, you check the edge again. Not because it's dull, but because you are alive. And on the sea, that is reason enough to keep sharpening. Asterisk, it was found at sunrise, drifting near the starboard bow, a small glass bottle, sealed with wax, glinting gold in the pink light of morning. A sailor spotted it, leaning over the rail during the change of watch. No one thought much of it at first. Bottles float. But when it was fished from the sea and set on the deck, men gathered. It was too clean, it's too whole. And inside, a paper curled like a sleeping fish. The bottle was opened with care. The wax peeled, the cork pried slowly, no cracks made. The captain himself unrolled the letter. His eyes scanned the ink, brow still as sky. When he finished, he folded the paper and said nothing. He placed it back in the bottle and handed it to the first mate. The crew waited. Then he simply said, "It's private." And that was the end of it. Or so it seemed. But sailors do not forget mysteries. And though no one asked directly, theories bloomed like barnacles. Some claimed it was a confession. Others, a curse, a last will from a sinking ship, a plea from a prisoner, a love letter flung from a port long buried under sand. Each man imagined what he most feared or longed for, projecting into the bottle the shape of his own secrets. That night, a few men swore. The bottle glowed faintly in the dark, as if the message inside pulsed with memory. The carpenter placed it near the stern, resting in a rope coil where it rocked gently. No one moved it. It became part of the ship, like the bell or the compass present, quiet, untouchable. It stood watch, its silence louder than any story, spoken aloud. Eventually, other bottles were brought forth, from trunks, from boots, from hidden sacks. Men who had written letters and never sent them, love notes, apologies, stories never finished. They compared handwriting, ink stains, whether the paper felt damp or smooth. The bottle had unlocked something, not its message, but its message about messages, that some words should drift. Cook placed his own bottle near it. So did the second mate. One by one, a small shrine of glass formed beside the rigging. No prayers were said, no offerings burned. But when men passed, they looked. Sometimes they paused. One even whispered. No one laughed. The sea has its own form of reverence, quiet, invisible, strong. Months passed. The original bottle was never opened again. Eventually, the ink inside faded, the paper browned, but no one removed it. When the wind rose, it rolled in its rope, nest but never fell. And in the darkest storms, a few men swore it hummed, low, steady sound like a heartbeat, or a name being repeated by the waves. One morning, during a violent gale, the bottles vanished, swept overboard. No one saw it happen, but the space where they rested remained empty. No one placed new ones there. No one spoke of their absence. It was understood. The sea had taken back its words. Yet something had changed. Men began writing again. Not letters to mail, but letters to say. Truths spoken more often. Secrets offered more freely. This bottle had broken something open, not in the sea, but in the men. There's a silence the ocean wears before storm, not absence of sound, but a tension in the air, like a breath being held by something greater than the sky. The wind stops without warning. The sails droop, lifeless, and the sea flattens, glossy and strange. The gulls vanish. Even the creaking of the ship softens, as if it, too, knows what's coming and chooses reverence. You can feel it in your fingertips before your ears confirm it. This is not calm. This is the waiting dot. Men become restless in this hush. Conversations shorten. Laughter disappears. Hands fidget with rope that doesn't need coiling. Boots scuff against the deck. Eyes scan the horizon without knowing what they're looking for. It's as if the world forgets to move. Meals are quieter. Even the cook stirs more slowly, eyes squinting at the porthole. The ocean doesn't blink. The sky doesn't speak. And all aboard hold their breath, pretending they're not. The animals know it best. Rats vanish into the deepest holds. Birds disappear into clouds. Even the ship's cat hides, curling beneath the pile of canvas, ears twitching, but no longer playful. These signs are more trusted than any instrument. Captain watches them closely. He walks less. He speaks only in gestures now. A hand raised, a nod, a single word passed from deck to deck. The ship braces. Lanterns are secured, sails reefed, knots doubled, tools stowed. No one runs, but no one wastes time. Every man moves like he's been taught this lesson before, maybe in another life, maybe in a dream. The rigging is checked again and again, even when nothing has changed. You find yourself pulling gloves tighter, checking your boots, tightening your coat. Even though it's still warm, your mouth tastes of metal. Your skin tingles. The scent in the air is strange, part salt, part ozone, part memory. You breathe deeply, knowing the air won't feel like this again for a long time. Some men touch tokens in their pockets, a cross, a feather, a lock of hair. Others whisper names they would never say in daylight. The silence invites secrets. The storm collects them. The water below begins to shift. Not with waves, but with pulses, small, unsettling movements, like something large waking from a long sleep. The ship responds before you do, its body leaning in odd directions, timbers flexing with silent complaint. You place your hand on the rail and feel it hum, not from wind, from tension, from expectation. When the first gust finally arrives, it's almost a relief, a jolt, quite a crack of motion in a world still, a whisper that becomes a scream. The sails shudder, the ropes snap taut, and the crew exhales in unison. There it is, the storm's hand on the edge of the canvas. You are no longer waiting. You are inside it now, alive, cold, certain. The sky breaks open, not in thunder, but in color. Gray turns green, blue fades to black. Then the first drop falls, heavy, warm, then countless rain that bites, rain that blinds. Silence is broken completely, replaced by the language of violence. Wind howling, timbers groaning, sails flapping like beasts. The ship howls back, refusing to yield. Your body moves without thought. Muscle memory guides each step, each pull, each shout. There is no fear, only action, only presence. The storm is not something to escape. It is something to meet. You tie what must be tied. Hold what must not break. Trust what cannot be seen. Okay? And beneath it all, you hear the sea speaking. It's truth, ancient, unrelenting, divine. Below deck, the sick moan and the hammocks swing. The hold groans, barrels shifting in their sleep. The carpenter checks every joint. The doctor tightens his grip on the lantern. No one pretends anymore. Everyone is praying, whether they admit it or not. It's with lips, some with eyes, it's with clenched fists around rusted charms. The storm does not come for you, it comes for itself. But you are in its path, part of its theater, okay? Witness. When the wind screams loudest, you are not afraid. You are awake. And in that terrible awakening, there is a strange kind of peace. The storm teaches what calm never could, that life is not safety. It is motion. And that surviving is a kind of worship. And when hours or days later, the sky clears and the sea stills, you won't speak of the silence before the storm, but you will carry it. In your bones, in your dreams, in the way you grip the rail, a little tighter the next time the world grows too quiet. Asterisk, he never rushes. Even when the mast groans under strain or the hull leaks after a night of battering waves, the ship's carpenter moves with slow precision. His hands, wide and stained with oil and pitch, are the quietest authority on the vessel. Schnell, he drives, Each plank he replaces is done with the care of someone writing scripture. He doesn't speak much, but the sound of his mallet is a language every man respects. Wood obeys him. So does silence. His tools are stored in a chest older than most of the crew. The brass corners are tarnished, and the handle is frayed with salt. Inside, everything has its place. Planes wrapped in oilcloth, chisels sharpened to a whisper, measuring cords coiled like snakes at rest. When he opens the lid, men pause. Not from awe, but from understanding. Something will be mended. Something will be made whole again. His fingers are scarred, but steady. He can trace a crack in the deck with his eyes closed and tell you whether it will hold another storm. He speaks to the ship in taps, in rubs, in the rhythm of his work. At night, when others sleep or gamble or drink, he walks the corridors with a lantern and a small hammer, tapping beams, listening for hollow sounds. The ship speaks back to him in groans and echoes. He knows which timber came from which forest. He remembers the day the keel was laid, even if he wasn't there. In every creak, he hears age. In every joint, he reads stories. Some say he never gets sick because the ship protects him. Others say he's made of wood himself, grown from the hull like a mast with lungs. You've seen him take splinters from his own hands with the same calm he uses to fit a beam into place. During storms, he is busiest. When all else is chaos, he finds order in disaster. He moves from break to break, patching seams, tightening bolts, whispering to boards that scream under pressure. Sometimes he builds barricades. Sometimes he tears them down. Whatever the sea breaks, he meets with nails and focus. Not to defy it, but to endure it. That is his gift, not resistance, but resilience. The captain trusts him more than the compass. If the carpenter says the mast will hold, it will. If he says it won't, the sails are lowered and prayers begin. He rarely gives such warnings, but when he does, no one questions. His word carries the weight of years, of storms weathered, of cracks seen too late. And in a world where guessing can kill, certainty is priceless. He carved his initials beneath the helm long ago in letters worn down by boots and brine. Most men don't see them, but you did once while cleaning the deck. A soft H and T, barely legible. You asked him what they stood for. He said nothing, just smiled and handed you a chisel. Make your own, he whispered, then walked away. You never did, but someday you will. When a sailor dies, it is the carpenter who builds the plank, who wraps the weight, who hammers the nails with steady hands. He doesn't cry, he doesn't speak. He sands the wood smooth so it won't splinter when it sinks. And when the splash comes, he closes his eyes for one breath. Then he returns to work. Because ships, like grief, must be maintained. The younger men watch him closely, hoping to learn. He teaches little, explains less, but allows them near. One boy became his shadow, carrying tools, imitating his silence. When that boy fell overboard one night, the carpenter didn't eat for 3 days. Then he built a new tool chest, smaller, and kept it beside his own. He said it was for balance. On calm days, you see him tracing the grains of the railing like an old man reading a familiar poem. His lips move without sound. Maybe he's thanking the tree. Maybe he's praying. Maybe there's no difference between the two. You realize then that the carpenter doesn't just fix the ship. He listens to its heart. And in return, it listens to his dot. And one day, when the ship docks for the last time, when sails are lowered and anchors kiss the mud, he will not disembark. He will walk the length of the deck, touch each beam once more, and lie down beside the mainmast. And if the sea is kind, the ship will creak once a farewell, then rest. Asterisks sleep on a ship is not like sleep on land. It arrives in waves, like the sea itself, never still, never fully silent. In your hammock, suspended between two beams, your body sways with the motion of the water. You don't fall asleep so much as drift into it, your breath sinking with the creaking wood, the distant splash of the hull slicing through ocean. Even your dreams roll and turn like the tides. Each hammock has its rhythm, its own song. Some sway faster, like a cradle rocked by a mother with anxious hands. Others barely move, suspended in shadow. You learn to sleep lightly, ears alert too. Bells, two boots to the sudden hush that means something has gone wrong. But within that lightness, your dreams bloom, strange and vivid and haunting. The sea does not allow ordinary sleep. Some men talk in their dreams, whispering names of wives or mothers, of places they've not seen in decades. Others cry out, voices torn from storms long past. No one mocks. We all carry ghosts in our hammocks. We all wake sometimes with salt in our eyes and no memory of why. You learn to lie still and listen. You learn to let others have their griefs in peace. The dreams are often of falling from masts, from cliffs, from memories. You wake, gripping the edge of the canvas, heart thudding like a drum, certain you've slipped from the ship into a black abyss. But then you hear the slow creak, the breath of another nearby, and you remember you were here, still aboard, still floating, still held by threads. Some dream of fire, of ships aflame, sails curling into the sky. Others dream of whales larger than clouds, swimming beneath with knowing eyes. Some dream of silence, pure and wide, without wind or water. Those are the worst dreams, the ones that feel too real. You wake gasping, grateful even for the storm above your head. The hammocks themselves hold stories. You inherit one from the man before you, and his from another. Sweat, blood, salt, all soaked into the canvas. You sometimes wonder if that's why the dreams are shared, as if the hammock remembers, as if every night's rest is a shared memory, passed from back to back, breath to breath. You never sleep alone on a ship. Even when you do, there's a rhythm to nights at sea, not told by clocks, but by motion, by bells ringing at intervals, by footsteps overhead, by the faint whistle of someone on watch. Time doesn't pass in hours. Here, it passes in swells. You learn to measure your rest, not by how long you slept, but by how deep you sank, and how gently you surfaced again. On calmer nights, you read the stars through the cracks in the wood. They blinked down at you like eyes of old gods. Cute trace constellations with your fingertips on the hammock's edge, naming them softly. Orion, Cassiopeia, the Southern Cross. You wonder if the stars dream too, watching over so many sleeping souls, swaying above the sea. Some men write their dreams down, tucking notes beneath their mattresses or between pages of old books. Others never speak of them, as if naming a dream would give it power. You find yourself somewhere in between, waking with a sentence on your tongue that makes no sense but feels important. You whisper it once, then let it go. When you leave the ship, land sleep feels strange, too still, too quiet. Your body aches for the sway, for the murmur of wood and wave. You lie awake in beds that do not rock, longing for the embrace of canvas and rope. And when sleep finally comes, it brings with it the sea once more, not in fear, but in familiarity. And so the hammocks remain, as threads stretched between wood and air, cradles for men and their memories, altars for dreams too heavy to carry in daylight. You climb into yours each night, not to escape the world, but to meet it in a different form. One where the ocean speaks softly, and your heart finally listens. Asterisk, the hour before sunrise is the loneliest on board. The sky is neither dark nor light. The sea, neither asleep nor awake. You stand at the rail, wrapped in wool and silence, watching the line of the horizon wait for color. The lanterns still burn, but their glow feels tired. Every sound seems sharper. The world is smaller. You hear your own breath, the groan of ropes, the gentle shiver of canvas. It is not fear that walks with you. It is awareness, the watch. At dawn belongs to the quiet men, the ones who speak with eyes, not mouths. They nod instead of call. They see before they listen. This shift is not about strength, but about presence. The ability to see change before it arrives, a sudden ripple, a light where none should be, a shadow moving too smoothly against the waves. Dawn demands attention, not reaction. Readiness. The captain wakes early, but does not speak. He walks the deck, barefoot, slow, with hands behind his back. Sometimes he stops beside you. Don't greet him. You simply stand together, looking forward. Not at the rising sun, but at what the light reveals. Then he nods once, almost to himself, and disappears below. It is enough. No speech, no orders, only shared trust beneath the slowly waking sky. You think more during dawn watch than any other time, about people you miss, about mistakes, about what waits beyond the next harbor. You do not plan, you reflect, as if the sea, still cold and silver, allows you this brief space to be human without distraction. No work yet, no sun yet, just stillness and thought, a sailor's version of prayer. And sometimes you feel heard. Birds arrive before the sun. One by one, they call overhead. Their cries are sharp, full of hunger. Some land on the rigging, hopping, bold. Others skim the water in long, elegant sweeps. You watch them without jealousy. They belong to the sky, but they visit your world, curious, okay? And you feel less alone. Their wings move, as the sails do, with instinct, not effort. When the sun finally rises, it does not burst. It drips like paint on the edge of a canvas. First orange, then rose, then gold. The ship changes color. Shadows stretch, then soften. The sea begins to glitter. You blink once, then again, unsure if the world has truly changed or if it's just your eyes adjusting. Either way, the day begins not with noise, but with light. And that is enough. Men stir below deck. You hear boots land, water poured, coughs, jokes. The day's machinery begins to turn. But for a few more minutes, you remain still. You earned this silence. You held it like a rope, and now you release it gently with gratitude. Not all treasures aboard are gold or rum. Some are moments. This one belongs to you. You log your notes in the journal. Clear skies, low wind, no ships spotted. It reads like nothing, but you know better. What you recorded was peace. And peace is heavy, even when written lightly. The log closes with a snap. You stretch your fingers. The cold has left them. The workday awaits, but part of you stays in that soft blue. Hour, by the time you hand over the watch, the deck is noisy again. Buckets slosh. Orders rise. Ropes tighten. You nod to the next sailor, say nothing, and walk toward the galley. Your body is tired, but your mind feels washed. Not clean, just rinsed. Like a cloth hung in wind, still damp, but fresh enough to use again. You eat quietly, cue, bread, and something that used to be fruit. Then you climb into your hammock, still warm from memory, and lie back. The sway feels stronger now. The sounds sharper. You close your eyes, knowing this sleep will be shallow, but full of images. The horizon, the captain's footsteps, the birds, the edge of light across a dark sea. Not all watches bring storms or sightings. Some bring only stillness. And that stillness, earned and carried, is its own kind of treasure. A thing you cannot pack but always carry. Inside the chest, beneath the ribs, behind the eyes, waiting to return again with the dawn. Asterisk. Lies the rope locker, a place rarely visited but always essential. It smells of earth and salt, of hemp and oil and old time. Here, coils of rope rest in massive spirals, stacked like sleeping serpents, thick, coarse, endless. Each length tells a story. Sails raised, anchors dropped, men hauled from the sea. The locker is not organized by logic. It is organized by memory. You descend into it, not for comfort, but for need. Rope frays, rope snaps. Rope must be replaced. When you pull a coil from the wall, you feel its weight in your bones. You carry it across your shoulder, across the deck, across the space between risk and rescue. You don't think of rope as tool. You think of it as lifeline, because that's what it is. Above all else, it holds. The locker is quiet, insulated by layers of rope, so thick they muffle sound. Some men say you can hear the ship breathe here. Others say the ropes whisper, the voices of old hands who pulled them, knotted them, trusted them. You stand still for a moment and listen. And though you hear nothing, something inside you listens anyway. The quiet here is not silence. It is memory unspoken. Not all rope is the same. There is climbing rope, thin and firm. Mooring rope, thick and heavy. Lashings, rigging, hawsers. Each has a texture, a smell, a particular way it coils. You learn to know them by feel. Some are stiff from age, others soft from use. Some carry stains. A red thread where a sailor once bled, a black patch from pitch. Each mark becomes part of the rope's identity, a scar worn proudly. Knots are the language of the locker, each one a word, a sentence, a command. You study them like scripture. Bowline, clove, hitch, reef knot, figure eight. They are not tricks, they are truths. A knot holds when words fail. A knot saves when plans collapse. To tie one properly is to participate in something older than maps. Promise wrapped in loops. Sometimes you descend into the locker just to be alone, not to hide, just to breathe. The thick scent of fiber calms you. The dim light soothes you. You sit on a coil and run your hand across the fraying end of a retired line. You remember the day it snapped in your grip, sting in your palm, the man who nearly fell, the moment it mattered. And then it did. Single quotes are never thrown away. They are tucked into corners, piled like old blankets, no longer strong enough to lift sails, but too sacred to discard. Some are woven into new lines. Others are used in training. The youngest sailor starts with them, learns with them, makes mistakes on them. The rope forgives. It doesn't forget. It simply teaches. In the locker, you do not speak, but sometimes you hum. Low tune your mother used to sing while washing. You're not sure why it returns here, in the dark, among rope. But it fits. You hum as you sort, as you wrap, as you carry. The sound fills the space like water fills a basin gently, completely. When you leave the locker, you return to the light changed, not brighter, not braver, just steadier. You've touched what holds. You've remembered what matters. The rope becomes more than fiber. It becomes philosophy. Hold tight, know your knots. Trust your weight, and always leave enough slack to move. Above deck, you see ropes everywhere, and they no longer feel like tools. They feel like veins, like promises, like stories written in hemp. You tie them differently now, with reverence, with certainty, and the ship feels it. You know it does, because on a vessel ruled by motion, the rope is what lets you stay. Asterisk in the captain's quarters lies a map that leads nowhere. It is large, faded, inked by a hand long dead. No names are written on it, no ports marked, no compass rose. Only coastlines that shift with the paper's curve, oceans rendered in shades of gray and gold. It's pinned to the wall, framed not in wood, but in stillness. Every captain before has left it there. None have removed it. Some call it cursed, others sacred. When the ship is still, the captain sits before it. He does not stare, but studies. His eyes scan the empty spaces as if waiting for something to appear. A shape, a current, a calling. You've watched him once, from the doorway. His posture was not tense, but reverent. He touched the map with 2 fingers, tracing nothing. Not searching, remembering, maybe, or forgetting. It's hard to tell with men like him. Sailors whisper that the map reflects where the ship is going, not where it has been. That the blank spaces filled themselves, but only in dreams. One man swore he saw a mark move during a storm, a line that had not been there before, stretching out like a road into the unknown. He never drank again. He never spoke of it twice. Its mysteries, once named, grow teeth. The cartographer, who made it, if he ever lived, left no legend, no explanation, only texture. The seas ripple under lamplight. The land curves gently, not jagged like most maps. It feels alive, like the breath of the ocean held in ink. You wonder if it's even a map at all, or if it's something else. A memory of the world, a dream of a place that never existed, or worse, a place that once did. During long voyages, the crew creates their own versions of the map on scraps of parchment, on wood, on cloth. They draw the journey as they remember it, crooked, shaky, filled with symbols. One marks every. A few add faces in the waves, claiming they saw them one night when the moon was full and the wind stopped. These maps are folded and kept like charms. The idea of direction becomes more fluid out here. You start to understand that forward isn't always ahead. Sometimes it's deeper. Sometimes it's quieter. The map without destination teaches you that not all paths lead to ports. Some lead to truths. Some lead to yourself. Others lead only to more sea. And that's not failure. That's just sailing. The captain once told you, over a shared pot of bitter tea, that he consults the map when he's unsure, not for answers, but for questions. That it reminds him he doesn't need to know everything. Sometimes being lost is part of the route. You didn't understand then, but you nodded. And now, after weeks under stars that don't blink, you begin to see what he meant. Late at night, you sneak into the chart room and look at the map again. You trace the edges of the page, feel nothing new, but when you close your eyes, you sense movement, as if the paper knows you're watching. As if the ship has been traveling not just across the sea, but across time, across thought, across something larger than either. When you return to your bunk, your dreams are filled with lines, not straight ones, but spirals, shapes that move as you move, compass that spins, not to confuse you, but to say, there are many norths. There are many truths, and one of them might be yours. That is comfort enough. That is destination enough. You no longer need every journey to make sense. You only need the sail to hold, the wind to come, the stars to blink once, just once, as you pass. The map can stay blank, because now you know how to move without needing to arrive. And when the voyage ends, if it ever does, you'll carry the map with you, not on paper, but in how you walk, how you wait, how you wonder. That will be your direction. Now, that will be your home. Every ship casts a shadow, not just on the sea, but through the lives it touches. You see it in the way a man walks after returning to land, still swaying though the ground is still. In the way he speaks less, listens more. In the distant. Look, he gives 2 rivers and lakes that are too quiet, too small, The ship changes people, leaves fingerprints behind the eyes, echoes in their gait, silence in their bones. The shadow is not dark. It is weight, memory, shape. You carry it with you, in your hands, in your habits, in the tilt of your head. When someone asks, which way is north? It's the way you scan rooftops for rigging, the way you choose a corner seat in taverns, the way you feel more at home when something creaks. Land never stops moving. You just move differently with it now. The ship's shadow also follows into dreams. You wake in rooms that don't sway, heart racing from storms you never sailed. You hear ropes in your sleep. You hear bells. You smell salt on linen that's never seen the sea. Sometimes it comforts. Sometimes it tightens around your chest like a sail too full of wind. But always it lingers, because once you've been shaped by the ocean, its rhythm becomes yours. On certain nights, when the wind blows just right through alleys and trees, it sounds like a ship pulling into port. You stop walking, you turn, you wait, but it's only wind, only leaves. Still, for a moment, you swear you hear footsteps behind you, boots on damp planks, quiet and certain. And you know the ship is near, not in body, but in presence. Its shadow has caught up again. Some men fear the shadow. They run from it, take jobs far inland, drink too deeply, speak too loudly. But the sea is patient. It waits in puddles, in songs, in the glint of light on glass. Eventually, most return. If not in flesh, then in thought, in a sigh, in the way they touch the edge of a wooden table like it might float. The shadow does not chase. It simply waits to be recognized. You come to understand that the ship is never just a place. It's a version of you, the one who survived, who learned, who watched the stars and knew their names, the one who climbed masts not to conquer, but to understand height. That version walks beside you always, sometimes louder, sometimes less, but never gone. That is the ship's gift. That is its shadow. Old sailors gather in corners and don't speak of voyages, not because they forget, but because they remember too well. A glance is enough. A smell is a shift in the wind. They carry the ship like a cathedral inside them. It's quiet, sacred, vast. Words would make it smaller as they sip. They nod. They stare into distance only they can see. When you grow old, you will feel the shadow strongest in early mornings, in the way tea sounds being poured, hey, in how light lands on wooden floors, hey, in how fog curls through trees like it once did through sails. You will pause more, rush less, not because you are tired, okay, but because the ship taught you that everything, even waiting, is motion. And when you tell stories, if you do, you will not speak of storms or monsters. You will speak of rope, of hammocks, of the way the sea hums when it's listening. You will say the ship was kind and cruel, combed and honest and necessary. You will say you still dream of it. And then you will go quiet, letting the memory fill. The silence, like a sail, fills with wind. The ship's shadow is not a burden. It is a shape you grow into, a weight that keeps you from drifting too far. It reminds you who you were, who you became, who you might yet be. You do not outgrow it. You learn to sail with it, even on land. Okay, and sometimes that is enough to feel the sea again, even without water. And on the day your eyes close for the last time, they say you'll hear it once more. The creak of rope, the call of gulls, the bell at dawn, and you will smile, because you'll know the shadow has come to take you home. *1. Day. Without warning, the captain announces the course has changed. The bow turns slightly, barely felt beneath your boots. A new wind fills the sails, soft, warm, familiar. Celebration follows. No cheers, only the quiet recognition. In every face, we are going home. The word tastes strange, heavy, sweet, foreign. after so much time afloat. But the ship feels it too, its timbers less tense, it's grown more like a sigh. You walk the deck differently now, not faster, steeper. Every board feels personal, every rope a friend. You pass your hand along the railing, fingertips brushing, grooves made by time and weather, and the palms of men who left their marks without trying. The ocean still rolls, but the journey now has shape. You're not chasing the horizon, you're returning from it. There is power in that turn. Letters are written, again, shorter now, less poetic, more honest. I'm coming, still breathing soon. Some are burned after writing, others folded carefully, tucked into boots or belts or books. Words feel less important than the fact of motion. You no longer need to say everything, you just need to arrive. That will be enough. That will be the answer. Memories sharpen. The way someone held your hand once. The smell of rain on stone streets. A meal. A door. A voice. They rise like bubbles in deep water, one by one, breaking the surface of your thoughts. You don't speak them aloud. You just carry them like fresh wind, like light, like maps made only for the heart. The ship hums with a new kind of silence. Not fear, not tension, but expectation. Barrels are counted, sails checked twice, ropes coiled tighter than usual. The carpenter sands the rail near the bow, whistling. Even the rats seem calmer, as if they too know the land is near. The sea no longer feels endless. It feels kind, or perhaps forgiving. Then, one morning, someone shouts. Not a warning, a wonderland. The word cuts through every sound like a bell. Men run, laugh, cry, grow still. You see it too, a line on the horizon. Green, solid, real, trees. Smoke, the outline of roofs. A world you once left behind, waiting like an old friend who never stopped hoping. But you don't cheer. Not immediately. You stare. You breathe. You hold on to the moment longer than you should, 'cause you know. Part of you will not leave the ship. Part of you will stay behind, swaying with the hammock, listening to the creak, watching the horizon. And that is not sadness. That is gratitude. As the anchor drops and boots touch earth again, you feel the difference in your legs. It's the stiffness, the weight. You carry the sea now, not in your clothes, but in your pace. You smile differently, speak slower, listen deeper. People may not notice, but you do, and so does the wind, and so does the sea. You turn once before leaving, looking back at the ship. It doesn't wave, it doesn't speak, but it waits, as it always has, as it always will. You nod a sailor's farewell and walk toward home. Whatever that word means now, whatever it will mean tomorrow. And when you lie in a bed that does not sway, you miss it, not painfully, but fully. The sound, the motion, the breath of the ocean. You close your eyes, and in the dark, the ship returns. Quiet, patient, whole. And in that dream, you sail again, not away, but within, because the sea is never behind you. The sea is inside you now, forever. The voyage has ended, but the sea remains within you, not in your skin, which is already losing its salt, not in your clothes, which now smell of soap and earth. The sea lingers somewhere else, where silence used to live. It pulses slowly, like a distant drum, reminding you of who you became out there, where everything swayed and almost nothing made sense. Coming home doesn't mean forgetting the ship. It means learning to carry it within. At the market, you hear the sound of barrels and think of casks rolling across the deck. When the wind slips down the alleyway, you turn, half expecting to see sails flapping above you. On moonless nights, you still scan the sky for Polaris. Your inner compass keeps seeking north, even among rooftops and stone. Yes, there is earth beneath your feet, but your heart is still afloat, drifting on unseen tides. People ask you how it was. You answer with a slow smile and measured words. How do you explain the sound of rope tightening in the dark, or the scent of wet wood in the ship's belly? How do you describe a night so still that the stars seem to hold their breath? So much of sailing is not what happened, but what changed, and what never went back to silence. After being touched by the sea, you move differently now, slower, straighter, with less need to fill silence. Your hands rest naturally on wood, on rails, on the edges of things. You still brace yourself when the ground shifts, except it doesn't. But your body remembers that it once had to adjust to the ocean's rhythm, and, in some ways, it prefers that dance. Even now, on land, the body sails on. The dreams haven't stopped. Some nights, you're climbing rigging that never ends. Other times, you're back in your hammock, the sway so real, you feel your stomach roll. You wake and reach for the ropes out of habit. You breathe the dark air, listen for the creak of beams above your head. Only silence answers, but somehow, you're not alone. The ship is still with you. In busy places, you feel the pull, that longing for wide horizons, for sky unbroken by rooftops. You don't hate the city, but it hums, too loud, too straight, too fast. The sea taught you patience. The ship taught you presence, tamed. Now you crave space more than speed, depth more than answers. You'd trade 100 roads for one clean line of horizon. Even if it leads to nowhere, you find yourself telling fewer stories. Not out of secrecy, but respect. The sea isn't a tale. It's an experience, a sound, a smell, a series of moments too wide for language. The more you try to describe it, the smaller it becomes. So you hold it, instead, like a coin in your pocket, like a prayer on your tongue. Something sacred, best left unspoken. You've learned that silence is not emptiness. It is presence, dense and alive. The ship taught you that. During night watches, during storms, during the quiet before dawn, silence at sea was never hollow. It was full of listening. So now, on land, you seek that same kind of quiet. You sit longer before speaking. You listen longer before judging. You let the silence fill its own sails. Sometimes, you hear the sea in unlikely places, in the rustle of trees, in the turning of a page, in the breathing of someone beside you. The ocean is not always water. Sometimes it's rhythm. Sometimes it's memory. Sometimes it's you. You are not what you were before the voyage. You are not only made of earth. There is salt in your shadow now, and depth in your silence. Ship, in the end, was not a vessel. It was a mirror, showed you who you are when everything else falls away, when the world becomes horizon and sky in motion, when nothing is stable except your choices. The ship gave you no comfort, only clarity, and that was enough. That was everything. You walk a little differently now, a little softer, as if afraid to wake something sleeping just beneath the surface. Maybe it's the tide, maybe it's yourself. But you know this, you carry something with you, not in your hands, not on your shoulders, but inside. Something made of wind and wood and hours spent watching nothing become everything. You begin to understand that there are no final destinations, only places to pause, to remember, to realign. The sea never promised to take you somewhere. It only promised to move you. And it did, across miles, across thought, across time. What you left behind is smaller now. What you became is still unfolding. When you stand near water, any water, your heart stirs. A river, a lake, a puddle after rain. You feel the pull, not to leave, but to remember. You close your eyes and hear the bell, the sail, the voice of the boatswain calling through fog. These are not ghosts, they are echoes. echoes that anchor you, even here. And if the sea calls again in a dream, in a breeze, in the way the sun touches the floorboards, you will answer. Not with a bag, not with a plan, but with the part of yourself that never left the deck, that still swings in the hammock, that still watches the stars, because you are not just someone who sailed. You're someone who remembers how dark and memory at sea is everything